Yeah, thank you. Great. I've got 6 o'clock. Good evening. Welcome to the City of Beaumont City Council regular council meeting for Tuesday, April 9th here at 6 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order, and we begin with our land acknowledgement as we always do. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all First Peoples of this land, whether they be a First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich vibrant communities across the land. As we gather here in Treaty 6 territory in the homeland of the Métis Nation, we acknowledge that we are all treaty people and have ongoing responsibilities to protect and honor the treaty, the inherent rights of the people, and the land. Next on our agenda is our proclamation. We have 2 this evening, which I'll read now. Lights on After School Alberta Day, April 19th, 2024. Whereas Lights on Alberta After School is a province-wide initiative celebrating school-age care programs and the role in keeping kids safe, inspiring them to learn, and supporting working families. And whereas after-school programs build stronger communities by bringing together families, schools, and community partners to enhance the well-being of our children. And whereas working families have peace of mind knowing their school-age children are safe and productive before and after the regular school day. And whereas after-school programs focus on developing skills and building resilience in our young people, giving them the tools to become responsible and engaging members of the community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Bill Danyluk, do hereby proclaim April 19th, 2024 as Lights On After School Alberta Day, the City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated 9th of April, 2024. Our second proclamation is Earth Day, April 22nd, 2024. Whereas the global community now faces extraordinary challenges such as global health issues, food and water shortages, and economic struggles, and whereas all people, regardless of race, gender, income, or geography, have a moral right to a healthy, sustainable environment and economic growth. And whereas it's understood that the citizens of the global community must step forward and take action to create a green economy to combat the aforementioned global challenges. And whereas a green economy can be achieved on an individual level through educational efforts, public policy, and consumer activism campaigns. And whereas it is necessary to broaden and diversify this global movement to achieve maximum success. And whereas the City of Beaumont hereby encourages residents, businesses, and institutions to use Earth Day to celebrate the Earth and commit to building a sustainable and green economy. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Bill Danyluk, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2024 as Earth Day in the City of Beaumont, dated 9th of April, 2024. Next on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any changes to our agenda this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. Administration does have amendment to the agenda this evening. That would be item 12.2, Innovation Park Update, closed session pursuant to the Freedom of Information and Protection and Privacy Act.
Thank you. Remember, the council willing to move the agenda as amended? Councillor Penrod.
Thank you, Mayor Danyluk. I'd like to move that the April 9th, 2024 council agenda be adopted with the following addition. Item 12.2, Innovation Park Update, closed session pursuant to Freedom of Information and Protection and Privacy Act.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Well, thank you for mentioning your Councillor Telebus is actually with us remote this evening, and I'll be looking for his voting by verbal in a moment here. Seeing further discussion on the motion, Council, I'll ask you to vote on the motion before you on about the agenda. Councillor Telebus, how do you vote? Nathan, can you hear us?
I can now, Mayor Danyluk, sorry, in and out of service here.
Okay, you're in favor of the agenda?
I am, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Council. That carries unanimously. Our next item on our agenda is open forum. Madam Clerk, any open forum guests this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. We do not have any open forum registrations this evening.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please put the consent agenda on the screen and you speak to it, and then we'll have anybody who wants to make any changes to the consent agenda. If you could, please.
Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome.
That the following council consent to be approved to the following agenda items without debate. Regular council meeting minutes 5.1, that council accept the meeting minutes of the March 26, 2024 regular council meeting as presented. Item 7.2, the 2024 Q1 capital projects update, that the April 9th, 2024 Q1 capital projects update report be received for information. 7.4, financial reporting request for extension, that the April 15th, 2024, by April 15th, 2024, administration submits a request to Municipal Affairs requesting time extension to submit financial reporting, including the financial statements and financial information return. And 7.5, bylaw 1041-23, 2024 fees and charges bylaw request to waive fee, that the request from SRM Ventures LTD to waive the administration fee of invoice IVC 86085 as set out in Schedule A of the fees and charges bylaw be denied, and that the administration provide notice to SRM Ventures LTD that the full amount of the invoice is due to the city by May 9th, 2024. And 8.2, bylaw 1035-24, the traffic safety amending bylaw, the bylaw 1035-24, traffic safety bylaw amending bylaw as amended be given third reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Appreciate that. Is a member of council willing to move the consent agenda as presented? Councillor Barnhart, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that council consent to approve the following agenda items without debate. 5.1. I do need to read them all.
I think we're okay. Madam Clerk already read them.
We're okay not to read them all? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion on the consent agenda. Seeing none, council, I'll ask you to vote on the consent agenda as presented. Councillor Telebus, how do you vote on the consent agenda?
I vote in favor.
Thank you very much. Council carries unanimously, 7-0. Thank you. Next on our agenda is our public hearings for items 6.1 and 6.2, bylaw 1046-24 and 1047-24. At this point, Madam Clerk, will you please read out the procedure for the public hearing, please, before we have our presenters proceed. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome to the April 9th, 2024 City of Beaumont public hearing on bylaw 1046-24, Elan to Neighborhood Area Structure Plan bylaw and bylaw 1047-24, Elan to Neighborhood Land Use bylaw amending bylaw. As both bylaws are in relation to each other, both the public hearings this evening will be conducted congruently. Public hearings are an opportunity to speak to council and advertise bylaws or certain resolutions. I'll spend a few moments providing an overview of the public hearing procedures as provided in the meeting procedures bylaw. We have been accepting written submissions in the weeks preceding the public hearing. The deadline for written submissions was noon on April 9th, 2024. We received one written submission and it has been distributed to council and made available to the public in advance of the public hearing this evening. All written submissions received by the deadline have been provided to council in advance of this hearing for their review and are also available for public inspection on the agenda page of the city's website. Registration to present at the public hearing by electronic means was required by 4 p.m. on April 8th, 2024. Registration to present in person is permitted in advance of the public hearing or at the public hearing. Mayor Daniluk, so far we have one registered speaker for today's public hearing. The speaker in person today, and we do not have any others participating by electronic means. The procedure for public hearing is as follows. Administration will first make a presentation to the bylaw 1046-24 and the Neighborhood Area Structure Plan amending bylaw 1047-24. Next, members of the public who are registered to speak or those who present here will be invited to make their respective presentations. We have the applicant present and in person, and we'll have 10 minutes to present. If anyone here has not yet registered to speak, please raise your hand and we will get your name and add you to the list of presenters. Council will first hear from those who are in favor of the bylaw 1046-24, the Neighborhood Structure Plan bylaw and bylaw 1047-24, Elan to Neighborhood Land Use bylaw amending bylaw, and then those who are opposed, and then anyone who wishes to be heard. Presenters will have up to 5 minutes to present, and council will have the opportunity to ask questions of clarification. When it is your turn to make your presentation, please ensure your microphone or audio is working. State your full name for the record before beginning your presentation. Your 5 minutes will start when your presentation starts. There will be a clock on the screen in front of you to track your 5 minutes of allotted time. Again, please remain at the mic once you are done presenting, since council may ask you some questions following your presentation. Once council has heard all of the presentations, the public hearing will be closed and the regular session of council will reconvene, and so that council may make a decision on the matter. On a final note, the city's public hearings are recorded as a webcast, which will be made available for viewing on the city's website. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. A lot of information for people in the audience who are here today in person. So a quick recap is that we'll begin with the administration doing their presentation, and then we'll go to the registered speaker who has 10 minutes to present, and then I'll entertain members of the public who may be in attendance to speak in favor or oppose or deem themselves to be affected. So is anybody else in the public intending to wish to speak and have their name registered as a speaker? Now is the time to do so. If you're just here to observe, that's fine too, but if you're willing to speak, now is the opportunity to do so. Okay, seeing none, I appreciate that. We'll begin with administration's presentation on the bylaw 1046-24 and 1047-24. Give me 1 second to get your mic on. I've hit the button a couple times and it's not seeming to want to come on. Just 1 second, maybe a little technical issue. Can you try me pressing the button on the microphone itself, see if that works? Okay, hang on. It's now showing on the other side. It's on the wrong side of my screen here. Okay, your microphone is on now. Thank you very much for your patience there.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Daniluk and members of council. My name is Katrina Tarnowski, and I'm representing administration's long-range planning team, along with my colleagues Joanna Swong, Matthew Grattan, and Trevor Maninka. This evening's presentation follows my report on March 12th, where council gave first reading to both bylaw 1046-24, Elan 2 Neighborhood Structure Plan bylaw, and bylaw 1047-24, Elan 2 Neighborhood Land Use Bylaw amending bylaw. To quickly re-summarize the two bylaws for you, bylaw 1046-24 is to adopt a new neighborhood structure plan in Beaumont's Western Elan neighborhood, and bylaw 1047-24 is to redistrict portions of the land within this neighborhood, legally called a portion of the northeast quarter of Section 28, Township 50, Range 24, west of the 4th Meridian, from the Agricultural Holdings District to the Integrated Neighborhood District. Following this brief presentation by administration, the applicant, ISL Engineering and Land Services, will provide a more detailed presentation on the redistricting and land use, transportation, and servicing concepts being proposed by the two bylaws. According to the Municipal Government Act, a public hearing for a bylaw must take place before second reading of the bylaw. Notice must be published at least once a week for 2 consecutive weeks in a newspaper circulating in the area to which the proposed bylaw relates, and it must be mailed to every resident in that area. Since March 12th, administration has placed advertisements for the public hearing in the March 22nd and 29th editions of the Beaumont News and has mailed adjacent landowners within a 100-meter radius. Additionally, we have posted notice on the city's website and emailed external agencies to further notify potentially impacted parties. Administration supports both the NSP and redistricting applications for the following reasons. They support the efficient delivery of 2 schools with shared amenity spaces on a joint site to meet the needs of Beaumont's growing population. They facilitate the development of a new neighborhood of 2,746 future residents within a complete community with diverse housing and convenient connections to services and amenities. They establish a comprehensive framework for logical, contiguous, efficient, and economical development and infrastructure servicing, and they conform with higher order regional and municipal plans, policies, and strategies. Administration recommends that following the public hearing, council gives bylaw 1046-24, Elan 2 Neighborhood Structure Plan bylaw second and third readings, following which council may also give second and third readings to bylaw 1047-24, Elan 2 Neighborhood Land Use Bylaw amending bylaw. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Any questions from members of council at the present time? Seeing none, thank you. Madam Clerk, I believe we have a registered speaker this evening who will be next on to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we have the applicant here this evening.
Okay, would you please join us at the table there? Thank you. And please speak your name for the record and begin when you're ready, please.
Okay, My name is Sue Payton. I'm a planner with ISL Engineering, and I'm here tonight with Darren Hicks and Dan Ziegler, who are engineers who have looked after the servicing and the transportation portions of the plan.
Thank you. Please, Mike, a little closer, the mic closer, to be a little louder for us.
Is that a little better?
That's better. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Has the presentation been loaded?
Just a second, we'll get it up for you.
Okay. Okay. Okay, the Land 2 NSP was initiated as a response to the urgent need for a site to accommodate high schools for the Black Gold and St. Thomas Aquinas school divisions. The plan was designed to consolidate the schools on a single site within the city-owned portion of the NSP area. This required a minor realignment of the north-south collector shown in the ASP, but did not affect the functionality of the road network, the intended uses, or the density targets in the Elan ASP. The plan was also designed to accommodate existing interim recreational and agricultural uses that will be able to remain in place until such time as the lands are required for urban development. Next slide, please. Oh, perfect. The Elan 2 neighborhood is envisioned to be a vibrant residential community, which is a logical extension to the Elan development to the north. It is anticipated that the neighborhood will adopt a unique name when the residential and mixed-use areas are ready to proceed. Future development will include a diverse range of housing to accommodate options for a broad demographic, including first-time homeowners, young families, and move-up opportunities and seniors. The neighborhood design includes a comprehensive parks and open space network with integrated stormwater management facilities. The comprehensive pathway network promotes active transportation modes and connects to the key destinations in the plan area, including the 2 high schools. The Elan 2 NSP complies with the guiding policy documents for the City of Beaumont, including the Edmonton Metropolitan Regional Growth Plan, the Regional Agriculture Master Plan, and Council Strategic Plan. This includes compliance with diverse and compatible land uses, compact and contiguous development, proposed density targets, and accommodation and integration of agricultural uses. The plan is also consistent with the policies in our complete community, the Municipal Development Plan, the Transportation Master Plan, and the Elan ASP, including a framework for a vibrant community, a broad range of residential, commercial, recreational, and institutional uses, multimodal transportation options, and opportunities for complete communities. The neighborhood design included a number of components, including the joint use site. As noted, the design of the neighborhood was predicated on the urgency for the schools. The plan incorporates the minor realignment of the collector road, which was required to consolidate the school sites on a single 12-hectare parcel that would fall on the city-owned portion of the plan. The shared amenity spaces provide opportunities for efficient servicing strategies and shared operational responsibilities. The urban village is a strong component of the plan. It was identified in the Elan ASP, with the northern half located in the developing neighborhood to the north and the southern half located in the northeast corner of this NSP. The area is intended to accommodate a commercial mixed-use node, which will ultimately become a focal point and social hub of the community. The area will include a wide range of commercial, high-density residential, institutional, and public uses in a compact urban form with vibrant walkable streetscapes and an enhanced public realm. Residential development will be in the form of separate multi-unit buildings and/or vertically integrated mixed-use buildings. In addition to the high-density residential component in the urban village, a diverse mix of residential uses are provided on the east privately owned half of the NSP. The area will provide predominantly low-density residential development in the form of single detached, semi-detached, and duplex dwelling units, as well as medium-density residential such as row housing, multi-unit dwellings, or apartments. The NSP achieves a density of 54 dwelling units per net residential hectare, which exceeds the EMRB target of 35 dwelling units per hectare, as well as the 41 dwelling units per hectare, which was anticipated in the Elan ASP. A local commercial site is located in the northeast corner of the NSP area. The site has high visibility with convenient access for pedestrians and automobiles and will provide local day-to-day products and services for future residents. The Open Space Network provides active and passive recreational opportunities, as well as a comprehensive network of trails and pathways connecting key destinations and promoting active transportation modes for healthy lifestyle options. Notwithstanding the significant overdedication of reserve on the city-owned lands resulting from the provision of the joint school site, the privately owned residential lands have been designed to provide 10% of the developable area as municipal reserve, so the neighborhood will enjoy the same local open space amenities as other neighborhoods within the city. Servicing will be provided in an efficient and economic manner consistent with the city's general design standards. The Elan 2 NSP is a logical and contiguous extension of the Elan 1 neighborhood. Sanitary and water servicing will connect to mains in Township Road 505, and storm servicing for the joint school site and Collector Road will flow to the storm pond north of the joint school site before connecting to the Elan 1 neighborhood. A detailed analysis of the servicing strategy has been provided in the Elan 2 neighborhood servicing report. The transportation network is a block-based modified grid pattern and is generally consistent with the Elan ASP. The realignment of the Collector Road through the urban village minimizes impacts on existing uses and does not affect functionality. The combined block-based roadway and path network provides a high level of active mode connectivity. Street-oriented land use provides an attractive and pedestrian-friendly design. Future transit is accommodated on collector and arterials. Policies allow minor revisions to local roads and lanes at subdivision, for example, minor block size changes to accommodate different product types. A traffic impact assessment was conducted to support the NSP and recommends that Township Road 505 be built as a modified arterial to match the ASP vision as a gateway connection, providing enhanced active transportation features as a grand entrance. Standard collector roadways with shared use paths are recommended. The urban village collector is modified from a standard collector to enhance and widen the public realm features. Active transportation includes sidewalks, shared use paths located off-street and within road right-of-way, and crosswalks that provide curb extensions to reduce pedestrian exposure and increase visibility. Future transit is provided along Township Road 505 consistent with the ASP. This slide shows the proposed cross-sections for Township Road 505 and the Urban Village Collector. On the left, Township Road 505, there's a shared use path on the north side and sidewalk on the south side. Boulevards provide space for planting, furnishing, and snow storage. Parking is provided on both sides, matching the street-oriented nature of the plan. 2 lanes are provided for traffic with a center left turn lane to accommodate turns. Urban Village Collector is on the right side. Wide sidewalks are provided on both sides for potential integration with future walk-up development frontage space to match the vision of the urban village as a vibrant, walkable, and central hub for the neighborhood. Parking is provided on both sides with 2 lanes for traffic. Redistricting. Redistricting and subdivision applications within the NSP area will commence as required. The first phase will accommodate parcels required for development of the joint school site, which is currently within the Agricultural Holdings District, and will require subdivision and redistricting to the Integrated Neighborhood District. This includes the areas required for access and servicing infrastructure. Future redistricting applications will be consistent with the uses identified in the Elan 2 NSP. We respectfully request council support for the Elan 2 NSP and the land use redesignation application, and we would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Appreciate that. Any questions, members of council for the applicant from their presentation? Councilman Cook, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. This comes up often, and I know as council, we've covered it in the past, but perhaps for folks watching, can you clarify, are roads getting narrower? And when we say that parking is provided on both sides, is winter and snow buildup considered?
I believe it is. I will defer the question actually to our transportation engineer, who's more familiar with the road standards and the technical aspects.
Yeah, sure. If you want to join us at the table, that'd be great.
Thank you for the question. So the question was, are roads becoming narrower? They are not becoming narrower because they're being modernized. What I've learned in the Edmonton region and throughout the province is a lot of standards have been updated to match current industry practice because the width of the lanes haven't matched the design of the neighborhoods. So the posted speeds, there's been a mismatch between posted speeds and the lane widths. So I wouldn't say they're being narrower, they're just being updated to match how the city is posting speeds. So they're the widths that are applied for this plan and throughout the region are consistent with the speed limits that you have here. So 40K an hour or 50K an hour.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next, I have Councillor McCroft Swain. Councillor, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the presentation and coming in here. Want to dive into the transit side of things. We already talked a bit about roads. Maybe help me just understand. So for 505, and if we maybe go back to the map there, just so we can, I think it's slide 14, maybe. Just on that same presentation, sorry. Yeah, so we'll all squint at that unless there was a better map. But so 505 kind of east-west. You talked about kind of effectively 5 lanes, right, with one turning lane in the middle. Question just around timing. Like obviously the whole point of this is to help support what's needed for the joint high school site. So maybe just help me understand when that 505 is anticipated to be designed and built to facilitate the high school site.
I will defer that to.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next batter up.
It's a hard, so the short answer is the ultimate plan is that it's 4 lanes with, so 2 parking lanes, 2 drive lanes and a center left turn lane. But for servicing the school site in the interim, it's, there's some constraints with a few things. So let Darren.
Yeah, there's design underway currently for Township 505 to be upgraded in the interim. That would allow 1 travel lane in each direction, in addition to a parallel parking lane on the north side. And the ultimate roadway can't be built to the full extent because there's land acquisition requirements on the south side.
Yeah, and so I think it looks great on paper here, right? Or in the PowerPoint. But what I'm trying to get to is kind of short term, you know, it's effectively just going to be a 2-lane road. And I know that the purpose of this here is to talk through kind of the long-term strategy and the actual plan. And I get that. Thanks for this. And so like, we're not going to get that for a while, right? That picture up there, right? And so, you know, the concern that I have, I guess, and that residents are going to have is, you know, there's going to be a lot of people on that road. This is the high school. So, you know, a lot of people driving to high school, everything like that. And, you know, bus turning and everything like that. And so my question is, really, it comes back to the four-way stop kind of before that, right? It's the 243 and 505, right? I'm just curious, like in this plan, it doesn't look like there is anything within this plan, and correct me if I'm wrong, to do anything to that four-way stop. And so whether it's, have we looked at traffic lights, roundabouts, how does that 505 and 243, what are we doing there?
Okay, I can answer that. So there's a parallel project that was done outside of that, outside of this NSP report, that is called the prelim design for Township 505. I also worked on that, and with that, we did a traffic count in November 2023 as a response to some feedback we received at the public the public open house for this plan.
Yep.
So with that traffic count, we found that the intersection currently actually works quite well. Although we did hear from the public that there was some queuing and delays that is occurring, but it's all within the acceptable limits. So when the school comes on board, that intersection is quite sensitive to traffic growth. And our understanding is that the school board will be taking responsibility to complete their own traffic study. So that's a case that is specific to the school site development, where this our traffic and transportation plan was focused on servicing the whole entire NSP. And the impacts of the school are really subject to their busing and their catchment areas, and whether people are coming from far away, or how many buses they're planning, or there's a lot of people walking or cycling. This plan does provide a lot of active transportation connections to the school site to give people the option so that volumes don't go up by a lot.
Sure.
Just 1 second, Sam. People in my closer, guys, make sure that Councilor Telvis can hear you. He's remote, so make sure, nice and close. Thank you.
So maybe if I could just follow up to administration then, at what point, so my concern is we approve this and we get, you know, and like, I guess I won't speak too much as we're in the public hearing here. So we're approving this, but how and when are we solving that 505 and 243? And what we heard from the applicant here was that that's a separate process. I wonder if administration could just speak to that so I could hear it from you guys.
CEO Schwartz.
Sure, and good question. Thank you. As was pointed out, that this at the NSP stage is not the time to have that conversation, but when the school becomes up and operational, once we have the final design, then we'll have to look at what needs to be done to 505 to accommodate it. And we'll come back here and with the costs and proposals.
Okay, so just to clarify, the school site, part of the school site design, right, which is quite a ways away by the time you go up and down and across and down, that includes, part of that will include the conversation for 505 and 243.
We will have that conversation, yes, and then determine whose cost it is and what it looks like.
Okay, and yeah, sorry, that was my biggest concern is probably the wrong word, but yeah, generally, you know, again, in the hearing, I'll stop there and look forward to the discussion moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Newkirk, followed by Councilman Telvis. Councilman Newkirk, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming tonight to speak to the development and task at hand here. During the presentation, it was stated, density numbers were stated that the regional density requirement was 35 and this was being designed to 54. Just wondering if you can speak to how the target of 54 was achieved. How did we get there when the regional requirement is 35? Thank you.
Need a bigger table. Some days bigger table.
Okay. When we designed the residential portion of this, we wanted to keep it as consistent as we could to the Elan NSP, which of course showed what the land uses would be, but it didn't show the detailed road network and how the lotting and that would go. It just indicated where there should be multifamily and such. So what we did was we put together an as efficient as we could for the roadway design, and used current product types, current like for the multifamily, what currently is being provided for density wise. And when we put that all together, and also anticipated the higher density that was envisioned for the urban village, the end result was at 54. And I think that's just the efficiency of design. When ASPs are done, typically it's a very conservative number. And certainly when the region was looking at it, it wasn't meant to be something that would be onerous or impossible to achieve. But when you do put together, when the design comes together in an efficient manner and such, then that's what the number said. Now that gives a tremendous amount of flexibility when it is developed, that there's a comfort level that those targets can be achieved. And there may be some relaxation in there going forward where what we had said was maybe 30 units per hectare for a site might come in at 25 and it wouldn't affect those densities. But being high tends to be, it gives you a cushion, if you will. It's a comfort level that you can meet the densities. And if you come in at your NSP and you're right on, exactly on the target, then the monitoring becomes very important to make sure that's actually achieved when you build it out.
Yeah, so
Yes, sir.
I guess what I heard is that the 54 is an outcome of the design matching the vision, matching the areas put forward in the ASP. So the 54 wasn't the target you tried to achieve. It was
No,
an
no.
outcome of
It was an
the
out-
design, the consideration, matching everything from the ASP using current product types and such. So
Absolutely.
okay, that's good on that one. And then when it comes to the, and you spoke to a little bit, when it comes to the meeting, matching, exceeding, or being lower than that target. So if you put 54 out there, but only achieve 47, that's okay because you're only required 35.
Yeah.
Now, what happens in a scenario where the 54, the outcome actually becomes 58 or 60? What happens in that scenario?
Typically, that would be a result of demand. And
Like another multiplex or something instead of
Exactly.
something that would have been a lower density?
and if it was something that came in at like a significantly higher density, I anticipate the administration at the development permit stage would ask for some sort of transportation assessment just to make sure that going to that density isn't going to blow up the transportation numbers.
Mhm.
Whereas here, the transportation analysis that was done was based on the 54.
Yep.
So that if it comes in a little less, it can still be accommodated.
Okay, appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. I'm now Counselor Telebus remotely. Nathan, you have the floor.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. I guess I have some similar questions to Councillor Van Nieuwerk in regards to density. I just for clarity, my understanding is this is a non-statutory plan, so there's no requirement to align with the EMRB in such a sense that we don't have to submit basically what we're proposing. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, but I think that if there were significant changes to the that didn't comply with the ASP, then the region would want to take a look at it to make sure that it still fell within the policy targets. Even though the NSP itself is not a statutory plan, but the ASP would be. And the target in the ASP was 41.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I'm just curious as to why we're trying to densify the community as much as we can. Given that 35 dwelling units per residential hectare is kind of the standard that we tend to align with, and you had mentioned that the ASP was at 41. Given that some of our services are already overwhelmed, we talk about policing, we talk about fire, just general infrastructure, our sports and rec facilities, a lot of them are at almost their capacity. Adding additional density, especially immediately, will cause some additional concerns in terms of being able to support the community. So I guess my question to you is, there's a note there of 1350 roughly units. I know you went through kind of the composition of the neighborhood, but how many units are we dedicating to each type of property? So things like townhomes versus condos versus single residential.
Let's see, we have units, we have, of the 1344 units, there were 328 were low density, 452 were medium density, which would be townhouse and up. And then the urban village was calculated at 564. Now that was based on a split that the urban village would be 30% commercial and 70% residential. And it followed the same type of percentages that were used for the urban village on the north half. So those assumptions, if that were to build out, say 50% residential and 50% commercial, when the detailed planning was done in that area, then that would reduce the number of units, but it wouldn't take the units below what the targets in the ASP are.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then just another question in regards to additional dwelling units that can be added to these newly developed dwelling units. Am I fair in saying that this 1350 units could grow significantly because of the additional dwelling units that could be added to all of these units? And perhaps this is for administration.
I think that, yes.
Sure. Just pull the mic
Is it-
over. Sure.
Oh, sure.
Thanks for the question. This is Matthew Grattan with Long Range Planning. And yes, in the IN district, currently you are allowed up to 4 units per lot. So there could be additional dwelling units, especially for the low density area. So currently that's listed at 328 units. That might come up if residents choose to add units as well to their lots.
Okay, perfect. So potentially increasing the density even more. I guess my concern is I'm just looking at the stats from 2021 within Beaumont, where it showed us a 16.6 dwelling unit per hectare. And just based on these numbers, we're basically tripling that. I do understand that there is, again, that EMRB that doesn't necessarily apply here. But even that is closer to double, and we're looking at triple the density. I'm just trying to get a good understanding of what our thoughts are and why we're approaching a development like this. Again, this is likely for administration.
Hang on, I think Mr. Wong wishes to speak. Mr. Wong, let me find a mic there for you. Hang on a second. Your mic is on, sir.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Tanabas. I believe that the answer to your question is this is the NSP, this is the non-statutory plan, and the statistic that we showed on the on this land use statistic table is for the planned unit, and as versus later on and the actual development. Because there is a potential of there will be additional dwelling units put on each lot that will be created, but it is not that all residential unit will have additional dwelling units. So we are at this stage, at the planning stage, this is a planned neighborhood. And at the end of the day, also when people coming in for the development permit application, the development officer will evaluate whether there is appropriate those things. So I believe that we are talking about 2 aspects here. This is the planned neighborhood. This is according to the statistic, according to the proposed number of units per hectare. This is the number we are coming with. And then the developer will come in and start developing subdivisions, and later on with the development application, and then further on, the homeowners may decide to add on additional dwelling units. So this is not planned, you know. So basically, I don't know how to answer your questions, but I want to relate the concept of this is a planned neighborhood, this is the planned plan, but then we are talking about as built, but we cannot forecast as built number of units later on. I hope I answer your question.
No, fair enough. And you did answer a portion of it. I guess my concern is additional dwelling units are a whole different concern. But in terms of the current density that's proposed, why are we approaching 54 units per hectare? Like, why are we changing the existing community so much when it's not a target that is necessarily needed within our community? Why are we trying to exceed the EMRB requirement? By basically 25%.
Okay, I think that is just like a formula because the ASP has come up with the number of units per hectare. For example, the number that we use in the area structure plan for low density residential, it is 25 units per hectare. For medium density, we used 75 units per hectare. And for urban village, which is 70% of residential, we use 100 units per hectare. And then we use that number to multiply the land area allotted to the all three land users. And then we come up with the number of dwelling units. So it's a mathematical, and we are following the area structure plan formula. So, and that is how we come up with the 1,300 units there. So.
At that point, Ms. Raymond, you wish to interject the conversation, if you could, please?
Yes, sorry, just to clarify one thing that Mr. Wong had said, definitely agree with how the math has been approached and everything. One thing just to note is that if we differ too far from the area structure plan, we do have to send this to the board for review. And they will question why we're not meeting the density targets and why we've changed the overall area structure plan density. So we do need to respect that, even if this is not a statutory plan for this area. Overall, we still have to be hitting that. And if we're not going to, it needs further review and we have to justify why. And that will be another probably 3-4 month delay on this, which will impact tendering timelines.
Thank you, Ms. Raymond. I will remind council, some of the questions are kind of getting into the debate mode, which is part of second reading and after the public hearing is concluded. So try and keep your questions and more specifics. We can avoid debating. We will debate later this evening, but we're kind of more debating now than asking questions. So let's try and garden ourselves accordingly. Nathan, any more questions?
No, I will hold my additional questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I have Councillor Penrod, followed by Councillor McCook for a second question. So Councillor Penrod.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. And thank you for your presentation this evening and answering our questions. My question's around the minor realignment of the collector roadway. I didn't have the opportunity to be a part of the original conversations around the ASP. And so I'm assuming that the original plan was to kind of complete the circuit. And now we have sort of a circle on the north side of 505 or a semicircle and the bottom half of a square on the other side. Am I correct so far?
Oh, your microphone, I'm having difficulty. Hang on a second. It's on now. Thank you.
The reference to changing the alignment of the collector was basically for the north-south collector because the ASP shows that it connects from north to south, but there was a curve in the road that went into the adjacent landowner. And in order to keep the entire school site on the city-owned portion, we straightened that out. So that's what that reference in the presentation was. We also squared off the circle that defined the urban village, basically to not be disruptive of the uses that are currently there.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. The question then is around how do you define a minor realignment, and just thinking about the form and function of what was originally designed.
Yeah, I think we determined it was minor because it started at 505 and went from the north to the south and connected to the Southlands. So it was still a direct route from the north to the south. It had just straightened rather than going through a curve. And the same with the collector road for the urban village. yes, it's squared off now, but you can still go in a loop all around the urban village. So it functionally, you getting to the destinations is still the same route. It just is realigned.
Okay, and you said, but I just want to lift it up too. So the reason for that redesign essentially is to move forward expediently with the school site development.
Yes, otherwise you would get into allocation of lands from a separate landowner.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor McCook, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question for further clarity. It said since the NSP received first reading, revisions have been made to 2 policies in the plan. Are you aware of the 2 or should I read them out? I'll read them out. 3.4.3.c, the development authority may vary parking regulations where lot dimensions create a hardship in meeting these requirements. And 4.1.4.d, where applicable, delineation of the boundary between private lots and Pipeline Row to mitigate encroachment issues shall be provided and enforced through means such as architectural controls or guidelines. Can you just explain a little bit what the outcome would be should these be used and what impact, if any, to the residents of the area would be?
Thank you very much for the question. Those 2 edits came from our development services team. They wanted a bit more clarity on when parking regulations would be varied. So this would be if the size or the shape of the lot caused it to be difficult to provide parking behind or beside the lot, or the building rather, that they might vary those parking locations. So they just wanted a bit of clarity on how that would be implemented. The second one has to do with the lots fronting onto 505. There's actually an intervening pipeline between the road right-of-way and the front of lots. So they wanted to be able to delineate what was private property and what was public property. And one of the suggestions was to add architectural controls to, say, enforce the installation of a fence, for example, just to make sure that landowners aren't encroaching into the pipeline right-of-way.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that clarity. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Seeing no further questions from members of council for our applicant, we'll continue on with our public hearing. At this point, I did ask before if anybody wants to speak. Procedurally speaking, I will ask one more time. Anybody wishes to speak in favor of the bylaw 1046-24, 1047-24. Speaking in favor from members of the public. Seeing none, any members of the public who wish to speak who are opposed to bylaw 1046-24 and 1047-24. Yes, please join us at the front. And please speak your name clearly, and you have 5 minutes when you begin.
My name is Paul Hyde. Just looking at this land use bylaw and how it's taking the temporary baseball fields out of there and the dog park out of there. What is the plan to move these baseball fields and this dog parks, and how much is that going to cost us? Because we got grants to build those baseball diamonds. I believe it was from the Blue Jays. And we have to go back to them and tell them that, sorry, we're taking your baseball diamonds down. And how is this going to affect our baseball clubs and our dog parks and our 10,000 dogs that are in this community?
Thank you, Paul. Madam Clerk, are we able to answer his question as part of procedure as best we can? Are we able to answer his question procedurally, or do we just take the question under advisement? Ms. Raymond.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So just to recap the question here, we were asking about the ball diamonds being temporary and the dog park as well. So the plan is to relocate the dog park to an area that is just, there was an area that is going to be opened this year, I guess. We have seeded it last year. We were waiting for it to be open, for it to be ready. The dog park will be relocated within the plan area. And then the ball diamonds are the most permanent form of temporary, I believe, that exists. And they will continue to be there. That is the reason for why the road alignment exists the way that it does. we made every effort to continue to accommodate that temporary use within the plan area, and will continue to do so until there is a need to relocate those or there are suitable other facilities available. The ball users are aware that this is a temporary area as well, but everybody, yeah, it will continue to be in place. There's no plans to remove.
So to be clear, the ball diamonds are staying where they are.
The
They're
ball
not-
diamonds
They
will
aren't
stay
being
where they
moved
are.
as part of this development whatsoever. That's just a rumor on social media, so.
No, I looked at the plan. If you look at the Elan plan for the urban village is where the baseball diamonds are in the plan.
In the future, but not in the, okay. Ms.
So how
Raymond?
soon would that, I'm just asking, how soon is that going to be?
Ms.
We don't
Raymond?
know.
Or Mr. Shorts, you want to speak first, or Ms. Raymond? Ms. Raymond, your mic is on.
Thank you. Mr. Hyde is correct that the ball diamonds are shown where the urban village is to be located. That is where it is shown in the area structure plan. The ball diamonds are located in the urban village area. So this is the future land use for what the permanent, the next 20, 30 years down the road, what that vision for that land will be. So this was approved under a temporary permit, will continue to be there as such, but we can't show the temporary use in the statute, in the plan document. So that's why it's not shown that way.
Seo Schwartz, do you want to do a backup on that? Okay, thank you. Councilman Swain, do you have a question for our presenter? Or
I probably shouldn't, so stop me, but what I will say is when we built those ball diamonds and we built the dog park, the Elan plan was already in place, right? And the point was, we've got 15, 20 years of this land until it's developed out. Let's use that now. We've got the land. So everyone was well aware that these sites are ultimately going to move. But what I can assure you is that the value of that land, when this is developed, is going to be significantly higher that Beaumont currently owns, right? And so the plan will be to relocate them at that time. But that's a long way away. This isn't new. This amendment here has no impact on the diamonds. It does impact the the dog park. And as you heard, there's a plan to go. So I know when you see the snapshot, it doesn't make sense. Alternatively, we don't build any diamonds and we don't have anywhere to put them. So that's why council made that decision. And this plan here doesn't impact that. So again, probably I'll just leave it there. Thanks.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm done, but basically, we're the third fastest growing community in Alberta. I don't think it's going to take 15 to 20 years to take that down. I really don't. And it would be a shame for our baseball community to lose that baseball diamonds without having a plan as to where we're going to put the new one. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, before we move them, we'll have a place to put them for sure. That's part of our responsibility as council. Thank you, Mr. Hyde, for your presentation. Any further people wishing to speak in opposition to the bylaw? Seeing none, anybody wishing to be heard in general? Seeing none? All right, Madam Clerk, I can declare then the public hearing is concluded. And with that, we'll move on to second reading of bylaw. We'll begin with bylaw 1046-24. I'll look for a motion from member council for second reading, then we'll begin our debate on second reading for that said bylaw. Madam Clerk, can you put there it is there. Councilor Penrod, do you wish to move the motion?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I'd like to move that bylaw 1046-24, Elan 2 Neighborhood Structure Plan, bylaw PH 2 and pardon me.
It should be below the line.
Yeah.
That's okay. I know what you meant, but just to be clear, please.
I'd like to move that bylaw 1046-24, Elan 2 Neighborhood Structure Plan bylaw be given second reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I'll open up to members of council to debate second reading. I'll start with the Councilor Swain. Councillor, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks. And I just wanted to follow up on the question that was asked during the public hearing. Because I don't think the answer was what we were looking for. So I think that the comment was the density target here is 54 in and around that. The EMRB target is 35. And so the question, I don't think the question was, let's drop it below 35. But the question was, why is it 54 and not 35? So if you dropped it to 35, then you're still within the EMRB targets. And so the way that the question was answered was, if we go below 35, then we got to go back and do that whole process. And I totally understand that. But I think where the question was coming from is, okay, if it went from 54, why wouldn't we target 35? So I'm just curious in the answer, not my question, and I'm not particularly too concerned myself, but I just wanted that clarity on the drop from 54, because to me, that's still within the statutory requirement. So could you help with that, please?
Mr. Wong?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Councilman Conway. I believe that, the NSP has to comply with the area structure plan, and the area structure plan has already assigned a density, a number of dwelling units per hectares requirement. So we are just taking that number to apply it to the NSP. And if we are not following that ASP guidance on the NSP, then we are not in compliance with our own ASP, which is a council-approved statutory plan. So I think that is, I don't recommend that to do. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So what I'm hearing is previous council have approved the NSP, ASP. Yeah.
Yeah. Area structure plan. Yeah.
Sure. Area structure plan, and I need your reverse triangle, Kendra, here, my favorite document. Yeah. To get these plans in order. But what I'm hearing is previous council approved the plan at 54. Therefore, if we were to change this, we would need to go back and change the whole thing, and that slows the whole process down. So that's the answer that I was looking for. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilor. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Wong. Next, I have Councilman Euchre. You have the floor.
Yeah, just a big picture question for administration. So what would be the repercussions if second and third reading didn't pass tonight to Elan, to the project, to the school site and stuff? Just big picture, if they didn't pass tonight, what would that look like?
Mr. Groton, I guess you have the floor now.
Thank you very much. So the biggest repercussion would be that the school site would not be developed. There would be no planning permissions in place to do so. The city would also probably not go out to tender on the construction aspect of the project if council hadn't given its approval for this. So I think that is the biggest repercussion of not giving it second and third reading.
Yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to make sure that, at the front end of this discussion, that was made clear that that's potential repercussions of this not moving forward. So I have another question, but I'll maybe hold off to see if others have questions.
If you wish to, or you can proceed now, see whatever you prefer. You want to hold off?
Yeah, I'll hold off for now. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. And thanks for raising that question. It's just good to clarify the implications, so I appreciate that. I don't see Nathan's hand up yet on the screen, so I'll go to my next councilor question. Councilor Buckoff-Swain, you have the floor.
Yeah, and what I can't let that one go. The school site doesn't happen if we don't get funding for the school site. So I have to get that in there. But generally, I think it's a really good updated plan. I appreciate all the work that's gone into it. I support it, and we'll be voting for this. A lot of work, and that's gone into a very short time frame. So I know there's a lot of engagement and feedback that has been adopted into this plan. So I think this is a really good example of how we've, had a larger plan in place and had to make some adjustments, and the team has done a fantastic job with you guys to hear that feedback, respond to that feedback, and put it in here. So I support this plan, looking forward to getting it going, and looking forward to the province supporting the school site. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. My next councillor with a question is Councillor Penrod. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. My question comes back to the density question again. So I'm trying to wrap my mind around what the benefit is to current residents of built out neighborhoods or neighborhoods that are much closer to being built out than the Elan neighborhood. Is there a benefit to those current residents for setting this density level so much higher? Like, when we're working with EMRB, is the total density for our entire community averaged out in some way? Does this buy us opportunity to be less dense in some mature neighborhoods? Just, I would appreciate a little bit of help on that.
Mr. Groton?
Thanks for the question again. One thing that I would point out is that the town center is basically the densest part of the Elon area structure plan. So we're looking at 54 units a hectare in this area. If you were to take out the urban village area, the pink area, it would drop down to about 41 units a hectare. By comparison, Lakeview and La Rev neighborhoods are about 37 and 36. So it's just slightly higher than those neighborhoods. So yeah, this area is the densest part of Elon ASP. As you move away from the center, you could look at dropping down to lower densities as well on the outsides.
Thank you. And just, I guess, to follow through on that, I was interested and heartened to hear that the transportation analysis completed for this neighborhood structure plan is completed based on that 54 units per hectare number. It seems to me that some of the conversations and some of the issues and concerns that we have in the community currently, especially around additional units in existing neighborhoods, is that there's concern that adding those additional units outstrips some of our capacity to service. Now, I think we can argue with that a bit. Those neighborhoods are also being built out according to their plans. But it is a real concern in the community. I think the other one I hear a lot of is with regards to parking, and seems like the average number of cars just goes up and up and up. And so the question is, does the transportation analysis, does that include parking, like where people put, is it just flow, or is it where people store their cars as well?
Thank you. I stand to be corrected by the transportation engineers, but typically the TIA looks at transportation flow and how the intersections perform. That's basically the major function of a TIA. Parking would be built according to the zoning bylaw, the land use bylaw, for off-street parking. In this area, there will be opportunities for on-street parking as well, as we have a collector roadway going north to south, as well as east-west along the north part of the school site. So there would be off-street parking accommodated there as well.
Thank you. If I could ask one more question.
Yep.
Bear with me for a second. There are different districts, and we're looking at redistricting from agricultural holding to, help me with the integrated neighborhood. So this is a new neighborhood coming online, integrated neighborhood. The existing neighborhoods are called conventional. Can you give us a little bit of color around what's the difference between a conventional neighborhood and an integrated neighborhood?
Mr. Noski?
The conventional neighborhood district is typically used for the existing or planned neighborhoods, the previously planned neighborhoods in Beaumont, whereas the integrated neighborhood district is intended for the newer areas because it is more in line with that 35 unit per net residential hectare density that's required by the EMRP.
So would it be safe to say that part of the designation, the difference in those designations is because some of these concerns and problems that we're having in the conventional neighborhoods are being taken seriously, and so there's planning steps being taken to alleviate some of those pressures as we develop these newer neighborhoods?
Mr. Groton, perhaps? I see your. Take your time.
So I think the integrated neighborhood is more flexible than the conventional neighborhood zone is. So it allows for a broader use, broader range of land uses from low density to medium density, as well as some compatible commercial uses. And that's typically not something you'll see in the conventional neighborhood zone. It's more geared towards, I suppose, the existing pattern of development in the existing part of Beaumont.
Thank you.
Answer your question?
Yep.
Thank you, Counselor. See no further questions at this stage. I will, oh, I saw Nathan's hand just pop up on my screen. Counselor Telebus, you have the floor now.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. Yeah, I just have a question and looking for clarity because my understanding, and I could be wrong, was that the original ASP was for 41 dwelling units per hectare. Am I incorrect in saying that, administration?
Through the mayor to Councillor Natellenbos, I believe that's correct. 41 for the entire ASP area. So that's the 8 quarter sections, of which this is just 1 quarter section.
Right.
Okay. Perfect. So I guess, I mean, without seeing completely into the future, would we align with that 41 going ahead with this 54?
Through the mayor to Councillor Natellenbos, yes, it would be taken as an average across the entire ASP area. So if this neighborhood has a higher density, that allows others to have a lower density, averaged out would reach that 41 that's planned for.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I guess my only concern is as obviously as the population continues to grow is we're going to be pushing more densified numbers, and that's going to be probably coming the same from the EMRB. So my concern is that this might change down the road, and then we might not be targeting that 41 anymore. Just speaking with a lot of residents in the community, a lot of them appreciate, you know, the area that they do have within Beaumont, and we understand that there's change coming in terms of the population, but we don't necessarily want to change our lifestyle and way of living, and that's what I've heard from residents within the community. I'm 100% supportive of the schools. It's a must, it's a need, and I'm a stakeholder in that with young children, but the density targets here concern me. So I'll end it on that, but that's kind of where I stand with this reading.
Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate that. Councilman Newkirk, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. One of the pieces that hasn't been spoken to in the questions, but I think it was alluded to in the presentation, was just around MR. And just looking for some clarity on the percentages of MR. There was a table 2 land use statistics in there that kind of summarized that. Page 25 in the bottom right corner, the blue square. Yeah, that's the guy. And then I just want to, if you could explain the 15.61, the 24.44 over to the side, and you know what we're getting for MR in this ASP versus what is mandated, because it seems to me that there's more coming than is mandated, because I believe mandated is 10. I just wonder if you could speak us through those 2 gray lines there, the schools and then parks and open space. Please, thank you.
Mr. Groton.
Thank you, Worship. So typically, the city is able to take up to 10% of a neighborhood through subdivision process. In this case, we have the city-owned land that's being used for the school site as well. So we're able to dedicate more land than would be required typically. So that gets us up to that 24% MR.
Okay, and then does that number throttle back upon build out then? You know, 15, 20 years from now when the, you know, when the roundabout is done, and then that number will throttle back because the city at that point will have, you know, sold land and stuff. Like, how does that look in the future?
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk, this parcel of land will stay the same size, and its proportion within the quarter section will remain at 24.4%. I think that answers your question.
Oh, yes. Okay, that makes complete sense. Yes, because what we're talking about is the, you know, the picture in the background, irrespective of the diamonds. That's right. Okay, gotcha. Cool. And then, Mayor, I just want to make a little bit of a statement around density here. You know, we're hearing from council, you know, for those who are in attendance and those who are listening, and administration and the proponent, you're hearing a lot from council about density and concerns with density. And that's because that's what we're hearing. There are a whole bunch of people coming to Beaumont that are buying product. That product is available. They're buying the product because that is the product available. I went and spoke with some residents who have bought new product in areas. They're not entirely satisfied with how close the houses are together, the challenges they have with parking their vehicles, the challenges they've seen with snow removal, so, the density concerns are coming from residents. The converse argument to that is people are buying the product. I get it. And people are going to continue to buy the product, but I just want to be very clear to the proponents, to those listening, to those here, to administration, that I don't think these concerns are going away. We're in a unique spot with this ASP that there is a school site development that hinges on this moving forward. And I think that's a good thing right now because we need the province to step up. So there's point number 2. Thank you, Monica Swain. Anyone else wants to jump up and state that as well, that would be great. The province needs to step up and support that. But again, I just want to be very clear. The residents are not enjoying the lack of parking. The residents are not enjoying cramped. The residents are not enjoying the perception of skinnier streets. Thank you to, the folks earlier who spoke to the fact that, that isn't the case, and there are classes of streets, there are design standards and all of that stuff because, those standards exist for a reason, and they don't willy-nilly change from development to development. But I just want to be uber clear with that. So, that's what I have to say. I will be supporting this tonight. But I just want to be very, very clear that this is what council is hearing. That's why you are hearing from council tonight, concerns with density. So that concern isn't going away. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I appreciate that. Councillor McCook, and then I'll have a quick comment myself, then we'll go to second reading voting. Councillor McCook.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, mine is more just a statement, I guess, following up by Councillor Van Newkirk. I understand the numbers, when you talk about 35 versus 54 and whatnot, they're shocking, especially when you're just looking at them at the paper. But upon having a better understanding, I know why this approach was taken, and the concerns are valid to Councillor Van Newkirk's points. But there is also another side. Alberta's population grew by over 4.4% last year, which adds 2 Red Deers. And fortunately, but sometimes unfortunately for us, we are close to a large city. So we're a very attractive place for people to come to. I also know we have to change how we build our cities. We cannot continue with the urban sprawl that many of us have enjoyed. I also think that as we look at this is very future-based as well. So this is not something that we're looking at building tomorrow. So we do have to kind of think about and build in some of that density because our government is encouraging people to come. So the people are coming, whether we want them to or not. I think we need to be more efficient and compact with our growth. And when we're more efficient with our planning, we actually service areas more efficiently and lower ongoing costs overall. So I think those points are important as well. And one of the other things that we hear consistently is the need for high school. We haven't built a high school since the 80s, and our population has tripled. And if we look at prolonging this and not moving this forward based on compact and some density that may go up to 54, we really look at jeopardizing our school and jeopardizing what that looks like for the future of folks that are currently here. So I think we really need to, when we consider the folks that are here, there are also folks that are here who want their kids to go to school in Beaumont. So and with that being said, I will be voting in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll go to one more speaker here. Councillor Barnhart has yet to speak this evening. So Councillor Barnhart, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Really good questions being asked and comments being made by colleagues and by members of the public and the proponents here from the administration. I'd be remiss if I didn't speak to the need for affordable housing in our region. I have had the privilege of sitting on the EMRB when the density targets were debated hotly, I might add. And it is hard when it is your community that's changing and growing, and you have a lot of space and all the amenities. But there are a lot of people who don't have that. And in our city, I think we have to look at that from the perspective, as you said, in the future. What are we going to do to make sure that people have a place to live that's affordable, as well as has the amenities that we are so blessed to enjoy? So I just want to say that I am going to support this. The high school being there is, of course, critical. And that, of course, is one of the reasons why this is coming forward as it is. And I am going to support second reading.
Thank you, Councillor. I was not aware that Councillor Telebas had his hand up before I said the last speaker being Councillor Barnhart. So Councillor Telebas, you mentioned you had a quick question, so please proceed. Then I'll make a final comment, then we'll go to second round voting. Nathan? Second reading, pardon me. Nathan, you have the floor.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, I just for clarity, I support obviously the school system 100%. As Councillor Van Nieuwerk mentioned, I mean, it's not just in our hands. We require that provincial support to carry through the schools. But I just have a question in terms of that density, because it is a big concern of the residents. It was mentioned by administration that if it's a significant change from the original ASP, then we would have to seek approval. What's the fair reduction in number that wouldn't require that approval?
Working on it, hang on. Oh, Mr. Wong, you wish to speak? If you could, please, thank you.
I will try to address this question. Actually, the EMRB, the regulation doesn't allow us not to following the statutory plan. So there may be some opportunities here if we have to go back to the drawing board. For example, the driving force for this high density is from the urban village. And the urban village, the density units per hectare is 100 units. So in order to reduce the number of units per hectare is to reduce the size of the urban village. But if we are doing that, then we have to go back to the drawing board. And probably we have to go back to the ASP, because that is the area, the urban village is identified as an urban village in the ASP area. So that is a chicken and egg thing. Yeah, so we can address the lower and also to be able to comment on this one. If you take out the urban village from the land use statistics, just looking at the low density and the medium density, and the total area is around 19 hectares, and the total number of units is around maybe just close enough to 800. So at the end of the day, if we take out the urban village, actually the density in Elon 2 is around 40 units per hectare. And it is very close to the neighborhoods existing in City of Beaumont. So, and actually the driver of this higher density in this neighborhood is the urban village. And the urban village is designed as a mixed-use complex. So, and that is the reason why in this plan, it has just such a high density level. But in other parts of Elon, there is no urban village, so the density would be much lower in the other neighborhoods in the rest of the Elon. So, and that is where we are balancing out the density for the entire ASP area. So I don't know whether I answer you the questions, but I believe that we just look at one small area in the NSP and as applied to the whole ASP area. So that is probably my comment on this question.
Thank you. I appreciate the feedback. Given that the provincial budget was released and we see that school is still a little ways out, the high schools, I'm inclined to not support this motion, just given the high density that we're trying to push into the community.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. So for the members of council to speak, I'll do a quick wrap up here. So appreciate all the questions, all the answers, and the answers from administration on this. These NSPs are part of our process to get our Silvers school lot ready for spring of 2025. It's always been the plan to have it ready for 2025. This is simply part of our process. It is reasonable to say we were unhappy with the government of Alberta not giving us design funding in the coming year before school is ready for be constructed in the spring. But that's not in our control. Our control, our obligation is to prepare land to be serviced for a school to be constructed on. This process is part of that. So these NSPs are critical to moving this process forward and having land ready for the joint high school for spring of 2025 construction. That is our responsibility, and these bylaws speak exactly to that. So having said that, seeing no further discussion on the motion, I'll ask council to vote on second reading. Councillor Telebas, how do you vote?
I vote against.
Thank you. Council, that carries 6-1. Councillor Telebas in opposition. Thank you. I'll now entertain a motion from members of council for third reading of bylaw 1046-24. Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that bylaw 1046-24 be given third reading.
Thank you, Councillor. Any discussion on the motion from members of council on third reading? Seeing none, council, I'll ask you to vote on third. Sorry. Oh, is that a new hand up, Nathan, or was it from before? I didn't see it go down.
Sorry, yeah, I will put it down.
Thank you. I thought I had it right. Appreciate that. Council, I'll ask you to vote now on third reading. Councillor Telebas, how do you vote?
Not in favor.
Thank you. And that carries, council, 6-1, Councillor Telebas in opposition. All right, next on our agenda is bylaw 1047-24. With that, I'll entertain a motion from member of council for second reading on bylaw 1047-24. And so for expediency, I'll do it myself. I move that bylaw 1047-24 Elan 2 neighborhood land use bylaw amending bylaw be given second reading. I will not speak to the motion at this time. I'll ask members of council if they wish to speak to second reading of the second bylaw. Seeing none, members of council, I'll ask you to vote on second reading of bylaw 1047-24. Councillor Telebas, how do you vote?
Not in favor.
Thank you. Sam? That's okay. That carries 6-1. Councillor Telebas in opposition. Council, entertain a motion from member of council for third reading of bylaw 1047-24. I will move that bylaw 1047-24 be given third reading. Discussion on the motion? See no discussion. Council, I'll ask you to vote on third reading. Councillor Telebas, how do you vote?
Not in favor.
Thank you, Councillor. That carries 6-1 in favor. Councillor Telebas in opposition. All right, next on our agenda is 7.1. We're at 7:27, which is normally a time we take a break around 7:30. So with that, I will, oh, Madam Clerk, you wish to make a comment before I take a 10-minute break for us? You have the microphone, Ms. Winter. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Administration is requesting that after item 7.1, that we could address item 8.2, the bylaw reading. If we can go ahead and address that after the RV Sandy dump update, that would be appreciated. And we do need council's consensus on that.
Okay, so that's 8.2. Third reading will come after Sandy dump after our break. Okay, any opposition or any concerns from council on a slight agenda change for some timing purposes? Seeing none, we're good.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll declare a 10-minute recess. We'll be back here at 7:40, please. Yeah. Thank you. We are live back after our short break. Is Nathan back with us? Is Nathan back with us online before I begin?
Yes.
Good, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, we're back after our break and we are moving on to our next item, which is 7.1 RV sanitary dump design update. Mr. Chartrand, I believe you're our speaker this evening, or presenter, I mean. Your microphone is on, sir.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Good evening, council. My name is Corey Chartrand, and I'm the manager of municipal projects within the infrastructure branch. I'm joined by Jared Elliott from Select Engineering tonight. In 2022, council approved the RV sanitary design project for use at the City of Beaumont's operations facility to be completed in 2023 during the 2023 budget deliberations. We have provided council with a report, design, and Class A cost estimate for this project. The estimate provided comes from detailed designs provided and is using current costs aligned with other similar projects done within the capital region. This design captures the best use of the current available space within the operations facility, while including similar aspects of other RV sanitary dump facilities currently in use around the region. Through the detailed design process, the quantities required for the design tendering process were developed to have high accuracy. At this point, we are now available to take any questions that council may have on this project.
Thank you, Mr. Chartrand. Appreciate that. Very good report, by the way. You read very well and very logical to follow through. Appreciate that. Councilor Muckhoff-Swain, you have the floor for your question.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for the solid report. And appreciate administration pushing this agenda item to today once everyone is here. I recognize that the purpose or the recommendation from administration is that we receive this as information. It's going to come back at budget coming up, and I'm good with that. What I wanted to weigh in here is just around making sure we've got the right information at budget time to be able to consider this. So, you know, a $1.3 million cost is obviously significant given all the pressures that Beaumont is looking at. I'm curious, and what I wanted to do is provide some feedback to administration to when we're having that budget conversation to see if there is some financial engineering that we could look for as part of this. So have we considered a kind of user pay system as part of that, and how would that be considered? How would that, so, you know, yeah, the capital cost might be 1.3 up front, but if we anticipate X and if we decide to charge users to use that facility to a certain extent, I would like that information to be included in the budget of if there are other examples of doing that in a way to recoup costs, because not everyone uses the RV site. So that's all I really wanted to do today. I don't think, and Edmund, correct me if I'm wrong, if there needs to be a motion around it. I just wanted us to think about that user pay system and how that comes back, because a $1.3 million cost, pretty tough to swallow given everything else that's going to be in front of us. And so I would be curious if there are other examples of kind of this user pay system to come back at budget. So that's all I had, Mr. Mayor. A great report. Looking forward to debating it at budget. I just hope to get some better financials around that.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor. Actually, you kind of read my mind at one point about the user fee idea. It'd be very helpful if administration has the ability to compare to other municipalities if they charge for RV dump. I know some don't, some do. It'd be nice to get an idea if that could be part of the consultant's report. Perhaps they may have an idea that would help us understand that. So that point is a good one. I'll go to Councilman Newkirk, followed by Councillor Barnhart. Councilman Newkirk, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Any of the experience I have around the user pay stuff is kind of $2 a dump is what I've seen as I've traveled around with my RV. But question right back to the beginning of this task, I guess, was around siting. Can you speak to the other sites that were considered? Ultimately, we've landed on the public works yard as being the most feasible and suitable, and that's the diagram and the cost we have in front of us. But administration's, alludes to the fact that other sites were considered and safety, accessibility, offsite and stuff were considered. Are you able to speak to any of those sites that were also considered within the community?
Mr. Mayor, through you. So during budget deliberations in 2022, it was actually, we were directed to look at the city operations facility for the RV sandy dump site. However, we also did look at we did a survey of the municipality to see if there's other opportunities. There were very few that we looked at that we felt could even be a fit for what we're looking for. The other thing that would be associated with that would then have to be a land purchase. So that would also escalate the cost for this site and this project. So we left as we did investigate. However, this still seemed like the the most cost-efficient option for the project to proceed and move forward.
Yeah, you picked up what I was throwing out there. So if we were going to do anything else anywhere else, we were going to have to buy some land. Like that was my point. And also there isn't really other suitable spots anyways. I think it's pretty tough. Things are pretty constrained. So second question is around the design of the site. And just maybe looking for some comment from the fellow from Select here around the road upgrades and managing traffic. So if you're pointing west on 510, you're going to turn north to go up and be one of the 6 groups, one of the 6 RVs in the stall there. How do we manage busy times when it's people are piled up across the access into Public Works? Because there will be times where it becomes very busy, a few times a year, and there will be site access problems. And then, I see we're proposed upgrading some of the east-west 510 there, like east and west of this is supposed to be updated, but I wonder if it's enough, right? Because if we get in a backup scenario where, you have 6 there, you got about 3 more, and then you get another one, you get 10 RVs in there and you're backed up out on the road. Just looking for some comments on that. And I guess my concern is there enough of a road upgrade, or do you actually need to create a turnoff as part of this rather than, make a full lane to the north and a turnoff? And I know that's more cost, but if we're going to consider this thing, I sure don't want to be in a position where, we haven't done, for another $100,000, we could have made a full another lane and made a dotted line and considered these busy times.
Mr. Mayor, through you, I'll try to give it a shot, and then Jared can step in if I don't get anything right. But so we did create the bypass lane to allow for traffic to bypass anyone that was parked and making that would be the eastbound left turn into the site. So if an RV needed to make the left turn across into the site, they would have the ability to bypass. Also, we've improved the intersection, the current entrance and the future entrance to have curvature to allow for RVs making the right and left turn lanes. I know that doesn't answer your questions, just to talk a little bit more about the roadway improvements. With that being said, we feel that the queuing of 6 RVs within that site will sustain any numbers that we venture to see using the site. Other sites around don't see that amount of use. However, there is also the opportunity for overflow parking within the site now. We have a current laydown area that would be to the east of the eastern access that we could adapt should we see some issues with queuing within the roadway.
Yeah, just to add to that, there was also a right turn bay added before you get into the approach. So you could queue on additional vehicles with
coming east to west.
Heading eastbound.
Yeah.
Heading eastbound, there's the center queue. Heading westbound, there's also a turn bay.
Yeah. Okay.
And so you can queue both directions.
Okay. And so that was actually where my next question was going to go, is if we have traffic coming from both ways, then we've backed up traffic in both directions potentially, right? Like, anyways, I'm talking worst case scenario, because the worst case scenario is going to lead to the worst case problem, right? And we have 41st Ave up here, north of us, that is a subject of all kinds of accidents and backups, and that's a left turn and a straight and whatever. And we see what happens up there on a bi-weekly basis pretty much. And I'm just wanting to make sure that, we've considered, if council's going to consider this spend, that we've, designed this to not, for some of the worst case scenarios. So it feels to me like you're saying that, but as an RV owner, I've been in 15 RV lineups on long weekends, right? So, yeah. Anyways.
I guess just to speak about the traffic use in, Mr. Mayor, through you, the traffic use in and out of the site, the anticipation as well as it's a lot of off-peak hour usage. So your Friday evenings, your Sunday evenings, as people are returning back, which then you see a real drawdown in the volume on 510. So you don't have that cross traffic occurring at those two approaches, which gives us more confidence that what we've designed is going to be able to handle the capacity that it sees.
Yeah, no, that's good. I just wanted to make sure I asked the questions here, so we talked through it a bit, right? Like, you know, it should be no surprise to anyone that this cost is what it is. Like you know, there's subsurface requirements, there's, you know, we're upgrading a huge section of road, like, you know, from east to west, it's hundreds of meters of road that we're updating and importing soil and bringing, so it should be no surprise that the cost is what it is. So I'm not questioning that. I'm just making sure that, you know, if we were to go ahead with this, I want to just make sure I'd ask some of those questions. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Telebus. Nathan, leave your hands up for a question. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question in regards to, I guess, the alternative option. Just wondering if there's any cost that could be guesstimated, just relative to the cost that's proposed for the one within Beaumont for the joint recreational use with Leduc County as a proposed option. And then also just wondering if there's any way that potentially that projected 2027 could be accelerated if it's determined at budget that this is a need for the community.
Mr. Mayor, through you, I really couldn't speak to when that new joint site could be moved forward or expedited. As far as costs on the site, on doing an RV dump site, we could look at what general cost would be. The issue would be we would not probably be able to dive down into detailed design and costing because we don't have the full ownership of the property yet or the full development plans or designs. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, fair enough. I guess you answered it to the best of your abilities, but I'm just curious as we evaluate what approach we should take from a financial perspective and potentially even an accessibility perspective. Would we be able to see a little more detail on the other proposed option prior to making a decision come budget?
I'm not sure I understand the question, Nathan. Sorry. Oh, Mr. Schwartz, I have a comment from Mr. Schwartz and I'll go to.
Yeah, this is turning into more of a conversation and creating a lot of work. So if council would like to formulate some specific motions around what you would like us to bring back at budget, then we'll do that. The simple question about some accurate costing was okay. We can do that and show some comparatives around pay as you go, but now we're talking about option 2 and redesigning roads, and that's just getting too big.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schwartz. I was about to get to the point of adding with Madam Clerk about suggestion was potentially bring back some revenue options, which does shape the scope of the report. We need a motion to that effect. Madam Clerk, is that correct? So we'll take a 5-minute recess. Hang on, before we do, Sam, are you prepared to make a motion to bring the funding revenue options as part of the report for budget? Well, I believe we do, Madam Clerk, because it does change the scope of the report somewhat. Can you clarify, Madam Clerk? CO Schwartz?
When we first started this conversation, the comment was, can we look at some alternate pay-as-you-go type of approach? I'm fine with that. That's a phone call and a 2-liner in the 1-pager we bring back to budget. But now if we're going to start looking at more costing for different options and impacts to roadways and stuff, then that's the motion that I'm looking for.
Okay. I was under the impression from administration that even to include the idea of potential revenue pay-as-you-go would require us to change the report through a motion. If not, that's okay. Then Sam, we're good. Okay. Are there any further questions or comments for Nathan? Is your hand still up from before? You didn't put it down?
Well, I mean, I think we need clarity on the option that's provided if we're going to have to make a decision down the road, but I'll leave it at that and I'll potentially put a motion in down the road to see what that costing will be.
Okay, thank you very much. See there no further questions from members of council. Course information. So gentlemen, thank you for your presentation and thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you again at budget time, I'm sure. Thank you. Thank you. Our next item is, pardon me.
Mayor, can we just have a motion to accept for information?
Okay. I'll make the motion that the April 9, 2024 report RV sanitary dump design update be received as information. Discussion on the motion, members of council? Seeing none, council, would you please vote on the motion to accept as information? Nathan, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you, councillor. That carries unanimously, 7-0. All right, we're moving one item forward. As per our break, bylaw 1035-24, traffic safety bylaw, amending bylaw, third reading. We'll bring that up to our agenda, followed by the health services action plan thereafter. Please introduce yourself and begin when you're ready. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Daniluk and members of council. My name is Georgina Kapos, and I'm a development planner with the Development Services team. I'm joined this evening by Kendra Raymond, Director of Planning and Development, and administration is here to present bylaw 1050-24, closure of a portion of 42 Avenue in the Russo neighborhood for council's consideration and first reading. Thank you. Administration has received a request to close a portion of road along 42 Avenue north of Russo school site, as shown here on the context map. The proposed closure area, which is highlighted in red, was previously registered as municipal roadway in 2022 to be used as a temporary turnaround for construction access and to the school site. The area is now being proposed to be closed and consolidated with the adjacent private property owned by Qualico Development West, and is considered a housekeeping matter for administration. Access for school buses and other vehicles will be maintained through 42 Avenue, and a new road and temporary turnaround will be constructed further east of its current location as part of Russo Phase 7 subdivision approval, shown in yellow on the map. The proposed road closure aligns with the approved Russo outline plan neighborhood design, where the new road alignment will allow for the future build out of residential lots directly north and will enable the construction of 42 Avenue extending west towards Range Road 243 and east towards Four Seasons Park in the future. A road closure is an application to permanently close a portion of public roadway. Once a road is confirmed as surplus, a road closure bylaw must be passed by council following notification to adjacent landowners and affected parties. After a road closure bylaw is approved by council, a sales agreement along with the bylaw and survey plan are registered and consolidated with the adjacent private property at Alberta Land Titles, as demonstrated in the bottom diagram. As part of this road closure application, the notice to adjacent landowners and public hearing advertisement stated that the surplus road is being sold at below market value in accordance with Section 70 of the Municipal Government Act. On March 25th, mailed notices were sent to adjacent landowners and affected parties, informing them of the proposed road closure and sale of land. A public hearing advertisement was published in La Nouvelle to run from March 29th to April 12th, and a public hearing for this bylaw is scheduled for April 23rd, 2024. Administration's opinion is that this road closure bylaw is consistent with the city's approved plans and future development. Should council give first reading to this bylaw this evening, a public hearing and second and third reading of this bylaw are scheduled for April 23rd. This concludes our presentation for this evening, and administration welcomes any clarifying questions from council on the road closure application at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for administration at this point? Councillor Penrod.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. Just a quick question. Eyebrows go up a little bit when I see the mention of land being sold at less than market value. Seems to me a reasonable explanation here. Just wondering what steps, if any, have been taken to avoid, in the report, it's referred to as a premature registration of the land title. What steps, if any, have been taken to avoid such premature registrations in the future?
Thank you for the question. Typically, these temporary turnarounds are registered as utility right-of-ways and not registered as roads. In the future, that temporary turnaround as part of Phase 7 subdivision approval will be registered as a utility right-of-way. This is a unique situation where we typically wouldn't have it registered as road.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the idea is not to call anyone on the carpet. Sometimes mistakes get made, but just always interested when a mistake happens that we learn from it and improve our process.
Just to further comment on that, originally the applicant had proposed an outline plan amendment, which did necessitate the road alignment actually changing, and they thought that they were going to continue along with their outline plan amendment application. And so therefore they had actually dedicated this as road because the road would have gone in a different way, and they chose not to proceed with that application. Therefore, this road alignment wasn't necessary anymore. And so this was actually something where the applicant had proposed something, they had done it this way, and then they changed their minds. So typically that doesn't usually happen. Usually people are pretty certain about following the outline plan as approved before they're making subdivision applications.
Thank you. Appreciate the additional color, Ms. Raymond. So just to clarify, has there been any accrued benefit or liability incurred by the city because of it? By what you've said, it hasn't even really been a mistake. It's sort of a unique one-off occurrence. So.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, there have been no benefits to the city from having this as road. It is currently just a gravel road and turnaround, and the closing of it will facilitate the neighborhood design to be in alignment with the approved outline plan.
Appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. I think Councillor Telebus has a question. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. I'm just trying to get a little bit more perspective on the size of the land that we're getting rid of. I'm just curious if there's an opportunity here to capitalize on that. And at budget, for example, we approved some half basketball courts, very similar to what we have at the bottom of 50th Ave there. Just wondering if there's an opportunity to use this land for something like that where it's fenced off and obviously safe and not right beside the road as opposed to getting rid of the land.
Thank you through Mayor Daniluk to Councillor Natalenbos. The area is 29.26. It's 29.26 meters wide by about 7 meters. So it's not very large. I'm not sure that it would be suitable. It's also near a lot of residential developments that will be taking place here, a lot of homes. They typically have a lot of complaints with basketball courts and noise. We've learned that, I think, through some other sightings of basketball courts. It would just be, it's really close and it's quite narrow. So I'm not sure that it's a usable playing field size, but we haven't evaluated that.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? I'll look for motion for first reading, please. Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that bylaw 1050-24, closure of a portion of 42nd Avenue in the Rousseau neighborhood, be given first reading.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Council, I'll ask you to vote on first reading. Councillor Telebus, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you, Councillor. That carries 7-0 in favor of first reading. Thank you very much for your presentation. All right, next on our agenda is 7.3 Health Services Action Plan. Ms. Squires, I believe you're presenting this evening? All right. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Cassandra Squires, and I'm the Manager of Strategic Initiatives. I'm here this evening to present the Health Services Action Plan, which comes as a result of the Community Health Needs Assessment. With that, let's begin. This needs assessment had excellent participation from residents. In fact, it was our best engagement on a city project to date. Based on our population size and the number of residents we engaged, we have a higher than 95% confidence level in the data and believe it to be statistically valid. As Council heard last month from MMP, these engagement results were then validated by data from Alberta Health Services, EMS, the Primary Care Networks, the Health Quality Council of Alberta, the Canadian Institute for Health Information, and most recently, the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta. This information allowed administration to create a health services action plan that we believe address the recommendations provided by MNP while balancing the role of a municipality in healthcare. Up to 80% of an individual's health is determined by factors outside of the traditional healthcare system, which are known as the social determinants of health. And it's those items in which a municipality's most important role lies. Of course, we also play an important role in the relationship we have with the service delivery organizations who are responsible for the other 20%. With these factors in mind, administration has given a lot of consideration to this plan and what our role is in the various recommendations. The final health needs assessment report is available on the City of Beaumont's website. So this evening, my plan is to summarize the recommendations briefly to provide context to the discussion, and then largely focus on what's next. I would like to start, though, with what Beaumont is doing really well. We are above average across many social determinants of health, including income, social connectedness, and education. Overall, our residents' health status is positive, with 87% of individuals reporting being satisfied with their health and 89% feeling their quality of health is good, very good, or excellent. 82% of our survey respondents reported having a family doctor, which is higher than the Alberta average, and 100% of respondents reported feeling safe within the community. And more than 90% of respondents said there are affordable recreation opportunities and accessible walking paths and green spaces. Of course, like any municipality, there is room for improvement. The key gaps in services identified in the report included after hours and emergent and urgent care services, primary care physicians with capacity for new patients, accessible transit services, and social supports for seniors, people with disabilities and their caregivers, and 2S LGBTQIA+ children and youth. This action plan addresses those gaps and includes timelines, resourcing, and responsibility considerations. It's important to note that many of these action items do not fall into current and existing work plans, and therefore they are resourcing considerations that will need to be brought forward at a later date and are noted throughout this plan. Administration used the following time periods: immediate 0 to 6 months, short-term 1 to 2 years, medium-term 3 to 5 years, and long-term 6 to 10 years throughout the plan. We have also included the role of the municipality for each item, which you can see here on the screen. I have to admit, I copied this from the environmental master plan because I really liked the way they laid out what our role is, and I didn't want to recreate the wheel. Mayor and Council's role has been considered in the government relations activities that I'll come in a following slide. We have also ensured this action plan meets the objectives laid out in Council's strategic plan and helps to achieve items outlined in the social master plan, the recreation master plan, and age-friendly strategy, including promoting existing programs and services available in the community, supporting regional discussions on the need for local health services, understanding accessibility issues relating to transportation planning, and ensuring Beaumont is an attractive place for services to locate, among other items. So on to the first gap, after hours, emergent and urgent care services. There is no urgent care center near Beaumont, nor is there consistent and accessible after hours or walk-in care. This encourages residents to use the nearest hospital for non-emergency care. Semi-urgent and non-urgent emergency visits account for nearly 30% of all emergency visits for Beaumontonians in 1 year, indicating that over 3,600 visits in 1 year could have been addressed through a visit to a health provider or a clinic located in the community. We know this lack of availability will only be exacerbated as the community continues to grow. So to address this item, administration will begin conversations with our regional neighbors as well as Alberta Health to discuss gaps with the intention of beginning long-term community planning. Alberta Health and the service delivery agencies are best placed to explore potential models of care that can address these gaps in services, whether that includes P3 models or other options. The next gap is primary care physicians and clinics with capacity for new patients. The report found a demand for more access to primary care services and expanded capacity within the city, supported by a shortfall demonstrated in the data. Beyond what's in the report, administration further explored physician data with the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta. This data came after the health needs assessment was completed. This data showed that as of 2024, 13 physicians practice in Beaumont, which is a decrease of 4 physicians since 2023. Beaumont has seen a downward trend of physicians since 2022. In 2022, we had 18. We now have 13, despite an increase in population. 3 of the current physicians practicing in the Beaumont local geographic area estimate that they will retire within 5 years, and another 3 estimate between 5 and 10 years. We also received information about their capacity. On average, Beaumont physicians see roughly 20 patients per day compared to the Alberta physician average of 25. Growth projections for Beaumont and the areas surrounding us suggest increasing primary care services will be a significant priority. As a municipality, we will focus attraction efforts for additional primary care services, including avenues with nurse practitioners. This work can begin in the short term with improved capacity estimated to fall in the medium to long term. We also considered incentives specific to the health service needs identified. To give an example, walk-in care. So instead of incentivizing all health services, incentivizing only the gaps that exist and have been reported on, and that is something that we could monitor going forward. Residents do have a wide range of services available to them within a 15-kilometer radius, so therefore any potential incentives would be focused on addressing gaps. We will explore those potential options over the next 1 to 2 years. Another option to improve capacity is to explore funding options for the recruitment of French language physicians. Beaumont is one of 4 bilingual communities in Alberta. I believe the latest census said that 4% of our residents have French as their first language, and there is only 1 bilingual physician servicing the community. The federal government has previously provided funding to assist with the recruitment of bilingual physicians in the past, and so further research could be conducted to determine if this funding still exists, if we would qualify, and if any of the local clinics that exist would have the capacity to take on another physician if that funding were to be approved. To attract physicians early in their career, we will also work to encourage students in their family practice residency to make Beaumont their home by exploring a grant program to assist with loan repayment, provided that they practice in the community for a period post-graduation. It's well known that the likelihood of a physician choosing a community to work in the long term is higher if they've done their residency there, have already built a community, as well as a patient panel. This program will require more exploration, but it is something we estimate undertaking in the next 1 to 2 years. And lastly, one item administration would like to explore in a supportive role is identifying potential barriers to utilizing team-based care. It was identified that there appears to be an under-reliance on team-based care, which adds to the capacity concerns of the physicians working in the community. Additionally, it was clear to us that residents do not know how to access these services or what is available to them. So while this is not a municipal responsibility, it is an item that we can address with the primary care networks who operate in the city as a concern that was raised during this process. Accessible transit services was brought up in the focus groups with seniors and people with disabilities, which align with recommendations already in the social master plan, the recreation master plan, and the age-friendly strategy. To address this concern, we will explore transportation options within the community in the medium term. Additionally, to further assist with aging in place and accessibility, we recommend exploring a regional mobile health unit with the service delivery agencies and our municipal neighbors. This type of unit can be successful in monitoring chronic and metabolic diseases at home, as well as utilizing staff to assist physicians with virtual care for patients who struggle to travel in the community. This initiative will also be explored in the medium term. To address improved social supports, including mental health, administration will need to hire an additional resource in the community services department. That's an item that will be brought forward to budget deliberations. Several of the action items, as I mentioned, do not fall into the current scope for our current staff. So an additional resource will ensure these items are coordinated and done in a time-effective manner. This resource would also action items in the other master plans and strategies that align with this. Beaumont has a growing population of newcomers, and therefore we would also like to work with the primary care network and the service delivery agencies to explore a multicultural resource and a community health navigator that will ensure newcomers and other growing demographics do not experience barriers to service. This is something that's been done in other communities where the multicultural resource can help with language barriers and helping newcomers access services without language barrier. This will also be explored in the medium term. Lastly, we intend to explore options to enhance accessibility and event planning, including options for a network of volunteers that can assist with people with accessibility challenges in participating in our community events. This will also happen in the medium term. Many of these items will require stakeholder engagement and advocacy efforts. This slide is then dedicated to those primary activities, all of which are expected to begin in the next 6 months. Administration met with health innovation agencies like Alberta Health and Health Cities, or Alberta Innovate, sorry, and Health Cities while this project was underway, and they all expressed interest in reconnecting with us to explore potential options to addressing gaps in services. So we are looking to reconnect with those groups and begin those conversations again. Similarly, our engagement with the Edmonton Zone Leadership for Alberta Health Services, as well as with Covenant Health, will be a priority to explore models of care and address several findings and recommendations from the needs assessment. And lastly, we will update Beaumont's government advocacy plan to prioritize the results of this work, as well as monitor the unfolding structural changes to Alberta Health Services. While these provincial changes present some challenges, we can expect that many of the individuals working at AHS will take on new roles in the new organizations, and we believe the connections and expertise we have gained throughout this process will be invaluable and put us in a good position to have productive, evidence-informed discussions about needs. I'll also add that I've heard quite a bit since this project has wrapped up that there are a lot of conversations about Beaumont and what we're doing on healthcare at those tables already, and so I believe that we're in a good position to be at the forefront of the changes. Lastly, one very important gap was the community and provider knowledge of existing health and community-based social services. This is an item we've been talking about. It's also in Council's strategic plan, of course. We are hoping to tackle it this year with an online map of services to be embedded into the new City of Beaumont website and a communications campaign to build awareness. We would also like to explore the feasibility of a multidisciplinary health network. This could include an expansion of the Beaumont Interagency Group, but the objective would be to improve information sharing and referrals between health and social service providers in the community. We believe these actions will improve services for residents in the community as well as further support the healthcare and frontline workers who already serve our residents here. With that, I look forward to answering any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Squires. Very good report. Much appreciated. Thank you for the presentation. And with that, I'll open up the questions, members of council, beginning with Councillor Monkoff Swain. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the report. Let me just start with data, or data, however you want to say it. I don't think people appreciate how far ahead Beaumont is because of your leadership and all the work that you've done to get this here. So thank you for that. There's a reason why those conversations are happening, and you know, you can't advocate without the data, right? And we talked about this a long time ago in patient council. Hey, bring us more emergent care, primary health care, and you're like, well, we don't really have a story to tell. Right now, we've got the story. So thank you for that. And I think we're set up for success on that. Where I look at this and I recognize what our role is in healthcare here, but I see a lot of words like attract, encourage, advocate, explore, right? There's nothing really tangible there for me. So where I go, and particularly as it relates to primary care, you know, the things that I think are within our scope, and you know, it's not in here, so let me ask it. Things like whether it's a MediCenter type opportunity there, like what we can control is our tax system, right? And so why don't we put some incentives here to attract and say, look, if you bring a building here that's going to support primary care for Beaumont, right? Then you know, you don't pay tax for X amount of time, whatever that looks like. Like we can be very specific with that and target. And I recognize the business community and, you know, why wouldn't we do that for this and that? But this is a major need for us here. It comes up time and time again. So I'm just curious, you know, vague. So help me drill down and why can't we get there?
Thank you for the question. Through the mayor to Councillor Monkoff Swain. I have a few comments if you don't mind. Number one, I would say that what I heard from the physicians that I had met with even prior to undertaking this project is that if there were incentives to be offered by the municipality, that there should be consideration given to offering the same incentives to clinics that already exist in the community. And I think based on the data and based on the number of residents who do have a family doctor, it is difficult to incentivize services that seem to be largely covering our population better than I would say other municipalities are experiencing in the province. Sorry, I'm choosing my words very wisely, and I can see you recognizing that. And I would also like to add that this is a health services action plan, and it is something that was developed pretty quickly following the needs assessment. And so these are all items that are really going to take time to build out what the most appropriate response is. I, of course, can't speak for my friends in economic development, but I'm sure they have a lot of research that they're going to need to do to make sure that our incentives don't fall completely out of alignment with what other municipalities are offering in the province. And so there's a bit of work that still needs to be done, which is why I would say a lot of these are vague
Yes.
items. And then, sorry, if you don't mind, lastly, I think it's also important for us to, I wouldn't say that there has been a large attraction effort for physicians in Beaumont to this point. And so my recommendation or administration's recommendation, I think, would be that we take the route of seeing what the market will give us if we put forward a concerted effort to attract a MediCenter or other physicians to the community before we look at taking a municipally led route.
So a couple of things. Thank you.
Sure.
So the 86% number, like I would say that's not within Beaumont, right? So a lot of folks in Beaumont who have family doctors have to travel outside of Beaumont, right? And so that's inconvenient. And it's very hard to get appointments. So just saying you got a doctor is one thing, but actually getting an appointment is a whole different thing, right? So I'll 86% sounds good, but if you drill down into it, how many people were happy with, their level of care, their access to family doctor, then, I think you might get a different answer there. I hear you on, existing facilities and not just attracting new ones. I'm all for that conversation, right? So like, again, we can't just hope and wait. And I know we need a concerted effort on a strategy, right? But like, again, what can we do, right? And this is a clear need, right? This is like, I link it to the high school site, right? Beaumont is taxpayers are spending a lot of money to develop this high school site because we need a high school site. And a lot of people, kids are not going here, taxpayers are not going to use that high school site, but we need that for our community. The same thing here. So I personally would like to have that conversation around tax incentives and what that looks like. And yes, layer on the advocacy. We've got to go out and attract these Medi centers. And what does that look like? But I think you're going to get a much better response if we can share that. So I would be interested in, and obviously I don't have an opinion because I haven't seen the data, but understanding what the impact would be, right? If there was tax breaks for both our existing and attracting new ones, what that would be. That's the conversation I want to have to arm you or whoever, probably not you because you've got 17,000 jobs, but arming the team that's going to go and attract this, right? Like we need this now, right? And we can go and have these conversations and come back and, there are other opportunities, other communities that are also trying to solve this issue, right? And, I want to give us the best tools that we have in our toolkit. So I guess my question is, how do we have that conversation? Is it a motion? Do I need to make a notice of motion? And so this is a broader conversation. And again, I'm very uninformed in this topic. I just think, what can I do, right? Because what I've done is nothing for 6 years is just admire the problem, right? And I'm sick of not doing anything about it. So when I say nothing, I mean, this health assessment, I get it, but what can council actually do to help this process, right? So how can we have that conversation to look at what a tax incentive process would look like, making sure it's fair and all that sort of stuff? How do we have that conversation?
Thank you for the question. I have slated this work to be done, obviously, economic development being the lead department for this work. When I had met with them to talk about timelines, we had discussed short term, so in the next 1 to 2 years. I would say I can't speak for that director in that department, but I would say that if that was something that we wanted to expedite, it would probably be something that would require additional resources based on what that capacity of that team at the moment.
And so, like, sure, short term, I prefer immediate. Go back to your scale, and I'm one vote here, but I'm happy to provide the resourcing to get into that, right? So, I guess that my question, and it sounds like there is a motion in here for admin to kind of what that would take to expedite this, to push this forward and what that looks like. I think first step is, what is the resourcing impact versus just saying, hey, bring it forward. And so, I'll try to formulate a motion in my mind and put the clerk on notice around that, which I know she loves me making up motions on the fly. But that's what I'm trying to get to, right? So understand what it would take to bring that economic development arm further up, and what are the resourcing impacts to that. So thank you. I know you were aware that this was coming and you crushed your answer as always. So good job. Just a couple of things. We talk about the advocacy plan, right? And in there, and I just want to make a small comment in there. It identifies, a particular company who can do this work. The advocacy work, I would just encourage us to think outside as well and look at everyone else who's in there and not just go back to our default. There are lots of advocacy groups that can help and who have different relationships. But my last point here, Mr. Mayor, is I didn't see anything here around Indigenous health. And I know that there are many nations and around this area who are trying to push the space. In fact, Enoch, as you're probably aware, just launched their own site on reserve to look at Indigenous health. And I think we're missing a key part here, right? Where there is an opportunity to attract and partner with local nations and Indigenous healthcare providers to look at what that partnership could look like, right? So we've got our traditional, MediCenter, but if there was a way to attract, and I know there are a lot of grant dollars that come with this sort of stuff, there isn't a way to partner with nations around this. I know we've talked about this as part of the health assessment and part of those questions are in there, but when I read back through this report, I didn't see a link to that. So I'm wondering, what our, and I know Ms. Niesink is kind of looking at that, but just how do we view that? I think that's a missing link from what I saw.
Thank you for the question. I would say that that is something that would be built into the attraction efforts for primary care services. We haven't, as you noted, this is a high level plan. And so we haven't noted exactly what those attraction efforts would look like, what areas we would begin to explore. I think Indigenous health services is something that fits quite nicely into that action item. And so I would say that that would be the best route to take.
Yeah, I don't want to see it because it's not in the plan, right? And I know you're aware of it, but I don't want it forgotten about, right? It's a key part of that attraction, and it all starts with the conversation. I know the mayor is working on a lot of relationships in the region with our Indigenous neighbors, and so these are things that start with the conversation. So let's have those conversations on top of the other million things that you've got to do in the report. But yeah, so I'll leave my comments there. Fantastic. I'll try to figure out a motion going back to my original point, and I'll yield the floor there. Thank you.
Okay. On that point, Councilor, we might just decide after our discussion over to move this to committee of the whole for more in depth, and then maybe motions can come from that possibly, but just a little food for thought. In the meantime, I've got Councilor Telebus, followed by Councilor Penrod, followed by Councilor Van Nuker. Councilor Telebus, you have the floor.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Danieluk. Touching on the report, first of all, a big thank you. I believe I mentioned this in the committee of the whole. Sometimes I question the cost benefit analysis, but I feel like you knocked this one out of the park. So I do appreciate it. It's not just identifying issues, it's proposing some, albeit broad, but some solutions to help fix the problem. So I do appreciate that. I just had a question. Obviously, we start off the presentation with what Beaumont does well, but just a little concern in terms of our number of physicians dropping. Did you happen to get a little more insight as to why that's happening? Is it related to retirement or better opportunities elsewhere? Did you get any clarity on that?
Thank you for the question through the mayor to Councillor Natellenbos. Unfortunately, the data that we received from the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta is completely anonymized, and it comes from an annual survey that physicians fill out across the province, and so they submit data. So through a data sharing agreement and a request from the City of Beaumont, we were able to receive only the numbers and the high-level context for that information.
Perfect. Thank you. And just for a little more clarity too, you did mention the potential for exploring an opportunity to incentivize loan payment and what have you for new physicians, correct? Is that something that we're pursuing sooner, or is that something down the road?
Thank you for the question. That's something that was also slated for the short term, 1 to 2 years. It is a program that we're hoping to explore. It's not necessarily a finalized program that we will be moving forward with, but it was an option that we felt would bring physicians early in their career into the community to begin their practice and hopefully remain in the community for the term of their, until retirement, hopefully.
Perfect. Thanks so much. I couldn't agree more with Councillor Monkoff-Swain that obviously it's a need and it's a need now. But we do have to keep in mind it is a competition across all communities, across all cities, and it's really a provincial and federal problem. Just one quick example here. I was in a first aid course and the first aid instructor was a physician, licensed outside of the country. So we definitely have a national issue here that needs to be resolved, but we'll do our best to try and resolve it within the community. Thanks again for that report.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Penrod, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. I'll echo my colleagues in saying excellent work on the report. As you may know, I had a motion following notice later on that I do have on the agenda. My intention at this stage is to withdraw that. Having seen the quality of this plan, I'd like to make a couple pointed remarks tonight, though, as I continue to consider how directive to be. I never want to give you all busy work. So I'll get right to it, I guess. Maybe let me start off my main point and just ask a question around primary care network. They're listed, our local primary care network is listed at several points through the plan as a critical partner. And forgive my ignorance on this. What's the current relationship with the PCN? I understand we're trying to build a joint site high school. I understand our relationship with both school boards and the tables that we come around to work on joint issues together. Do such tables exist? Is this a relationship that needs to be developed completely? Is it a relationship that already exists to a certain extent? And then what are the opportunities and what are the resources required to deepen that relationship?
Thank you for the question. Through the mayor to Councillor Penrod. I can really only speak to my own relationship with the PCN. So you might find it interesting to know that there are two primary care networks that service Beaumont, the Leduc Beaumont Devon Primary Care Network, but there are also physicians in the community who are associated with the Edmonton South Primary Care Network. So there are two different bodies here. Prior to undertaking this work, we met with the executive director and some of his staff at the Leduc Beaumont Devon Primary Care Network to talk to them about this potential project at the time and to encourage their participation when the project had come to that point. They did participate in focus groups and they provided a lot of input into this as well as sharing data that was really valuable throughout this process. They have data that we can only get through the primary care network that is not available through Alberta Health Services. So they played a really important role. I would say that we have a good relationship with the primary care network. I'm not sure if there are tables like for the school site, for example. But I do think because they operate in our community, I think we can engage with them like we would any other business that operates in the community and have productive conversations about gaps that we see and what potential solutions exist. I would say that I think the community services department has had a different relationship with, and a good one, I should say, with the primary care network as well. I just can't speak to what that relationship was.
Sure. Okay, thank you. That's heartening. And it's kind of a good segue maybe into my main question or comment, which is what's the current capacity to engage local businesses and residents who are themselves frontline healthcare providers? From my own realm that I live and breathe in every day, an obvious one is those frontline providers at the family medicine clinics. In several of the points within the plan, on page 6, the after hours and urgent care work. On page 7, the primary care and capacity work. On page 11, the feasibility and multidisciplinary health network. There are already people in this community working to solve those problems. Are we talking to them? Are we hearing from them? What are the barriers they're facing? What are the tools that they could use? I'm with Councillor Munkoff-Swain. I'd like to get to work on this. So maybe close my comments by saying in January, there were 4 of us in Canmore at Mid-Size City Caucus, Mid-Size City Mayor's Caucus. And we heard some really interesting stories from both Cold Lake and Sylvan Lake of how they're working. Now, those two communities have very different contexts than ours. But Sylvan Lake was especially interesting to me and inspiring because they had their whole team working on the issue. Administration and elected officials. And they had found a way to do that effectively where no one was in each other's lanes, no one was stepping on each other's toes, but the work was getting done. And I feel like on this issue, I just want to make sure, number one, we're talking to those stakeholders that are already trying to solve these problems so that we can understand best how to come alongside them and support them and not reinvent the wheel, but also fill in gaps that they're missing. Number two, how do we use our whole team as the city of Beaumont to do this work? I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Councilman Newkirk, you have the floor.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. Sandra, I apologize. Ms. Squires? Sorry, Steve. I'll get back to you in a minute, Steve. Okay, thanks. Ms. Squires, you want to respond to that? If you want to, please do.
yes, I would like to respond to that. And thank you so much for the very important question. Healthcare workers and frontline workers across the spectrum of health services were a really important group that we wanted to engage with throughout the community health needs assessment. So we had the survey where they were able to identify themselves as healthcare workers in the community. We also had a healthcare worker specific focus group. We offered them opportunities to participate via email because, of course, we understood that not all would be able to attend focus groups given their capacity. And we also called each clinic, pharmacy, several different organizations directly to invite them to all these things. Unfortunately, we only had one healthcare worker attend our focus group. And I would say that is not due to lack of very direct effort to get them to participate. My hope is that so there is a group called the Beaumont Interagency Group. It is largely social services. My hope is that through that group, we can expand it to be more multidisciplinary, expanding for the whole spectrum of healthcare, not just the social services sector, so that these groups can be meeting together. It's a forum where we would be able to attend to talk to them about these different actions in the Health Services Action Plan. You're right, there are a lot of actions that include these stakeholder groups. And I would say, while we have a really productive relationship with the primary care networks, I'm not sure we have as strong as of a relationship with the practitioners practicing and delivering services in the community. And so I'm quite hopeful that that's a forum where we can bring these items for discussion and we can have more conversations about how we can work together, because there are a lot of people working to solve this problem, but they are all working in silos. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Squires. Councilman Newkirk, back to you.
Yeah, thank you. And Councillor Penrod hit one of the points that I wanted to start with, and finding the physicians is a competition, and we've got some stiff competition in Sylvan Lake. So particularly what they're up to, and what we saw is they are leveraging their people, they're leveraging their groups, they're leveraging their events, they're leveraging their location, and showcasing that and bringing people to the community, picking them up at the airport, touring them around, connecting them in the community, and so very exciting. My question is around prioritization. We have the municipal role, provider, supporter, leader, owner. So is the next iteration of this you going away and prioritizing and saying, this is what we can do between now and budget, this is the stuff that we're going to ask for at budget, this is the stuff that isn't even going to fit at budget and trips over into next year? Like, is that the next work you're going to do with all of this? Because there's a lot of work here to be done, right?
Thank you for the question. There is a lot of work here to be done. I would say, I think that is part of the next step. I think we have prioritized what role the municipality, like what makes the most sense for the municipality to take on as a next step. But there will be a lot of work to figure out what we need to bring forward during budget deliberations to ensure that these action items can come forward in the timelines that we've suggested, or in the case that if council would like to make a motion to expedite those timelines, there will definitely be a conversation about resourcing to make sure that that can happen.
For sure. Yeah, but for me, the foreshadowing on budget here is community health and infrastructure. That's the themes I see coming, but we'll see what administration comes up with for sure. Just a question on the mobile health unit. That's the one that really stood out for me. Let me just have to scroll back to it here. Just wondering, what would our role be in that? Because I think the mobile health unit listed everyone around us as potential partners. But has anyone done that before? I guess that's my first question.
Thank you for the question. It is something that I received quite positive feedback from the team that I was working with at AHS on this program. They've seen success with this type of unit in other areas. I would say that our role is leader of the discussion to be had with our regional partners and with the service delivery agencies. I keep calling them that because I don't know what they're going to look like when we need to action this plan. And then a supporter role. So it's not a service that the municipality would deliver, but it is a service that I would say the municipality would support the service delivery agencies to offer. I believe that we are probably seeing very similar chronic and metabolic diseases that our neighbors are seeing in their communities. And one thing that was flagged to us in the needs assessment was that we have a very young population that should be really quite healthy. And so the fact that several survey respondents said that that is one of the top 3 issues that they see their family doctor for in the community is something that was flagged as a concern for long-term health implications. And then the added benefit of a mobile health unit is the accessibility issue that we saw and the aging in place strategy that talks about that as well. And so my hope would be that our regional partners would be willing to explore that option with the service delivery agencies as well. And it's something that could service the region and not just something that would exist in Beaumont alone.
Yeah, then we got the book bike and the wellness wagon, right? So we got the stickers made. We just need them to staff it now, right? So yeah, okay, that's good for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barnhart, followed by Councillor McCook, followed by Councillor McGough-Swain. Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Mayor. Running out of voice tonight. You've done a phenomenal job and I really do appreciate it. I know that I looked at your title, Manager of Strategic Initiatives. Well, if this one isn't strategic, I don't know what is. This is a big one. And it's outside our usual scope of activities. So I can imagine how difficult it must be for you to have some of these conversations because it's like municipalities asking these questions and we know that the provincial government has a big role to play here in helping us solve this problem. And we're not alone. That's the other piece of it. So I have big questions in my head and I can't even articulate all of them. The one that comes to mind here that first I want to say thank you for taking the plans that you have and kind of pulling them together and taking salient parts of the different plans and pushing those forward because I know the social master plan is one that some of the same things are being said in that plan. So let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's keep going with the things that we already identified as needing that support. And it's good to have this before budget time because that's when we can do something about it. The question that I want to ask, so we've talked a lot about resources. When it says immediate and short term, when will we hear what progress you're making? And how frequently are you going to give us an update? Because you can tell we're all very interested and we're hearing daily from our residents about these issues. So what can you talk about in terms of reporting back to keep us on the same page with you?
Thank you for the question. That was something we considered. I believe the current plan is that this full action plan would come back to council annually for an update to report on progress, but each specific action item would be dependent on the timeline that it is slated for. And so items that are not coming back till the medium term in 3 to 5 years, then when that work begins and any items that need to come to budget deliberations at that time would receive an update at that time. And then of course you would get an update at the annual update.
Oh, you're good. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCook, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just echoing my fellow councillors, fantastic details on the report. I know I went through the first kind of presentation one and had a bunch of questions laid out, and then I went through the second more in-depth piece, and a lot of my questions were clarified, so that was really helpful. to have all that information. I think a lot of really great points and initiatives on this action plan. As I said, much has been covered for my fellow councillors, so I won't belabor the points. From mobile health unit to capacity, all that kind of stuff. But something that was laid out was, as these enhancements and initiatives are launched, it'll be important to communicate availability, share the good news, and encourage feedback. And looking at these initiatives from a strategic perspective, they do not have to be standalone promotions or campaigns. Obviously, completely agree. I think we really need to be proactive in sharing this information, and especially to Councillor Barnhart's points, as we progress, what are the points we're hitting and what are we doing? In saying that, do we kind of have a communication strategy moving forward around this, or is that something that will be coming?
Thank you for the question. That is something that will be coming. The first large communications tactic that you can expect to see is the online web map, and then a communications campaign following that will highlight that the web map, sorry, I'm also losing my voice. Highlight that the web map exists and that there is a database available to show residents what all of the services are that are available in the community. That will be the first thing. But I would echo your sentiment that it'll be important to keep updated. I think a communications plan to continue updates and also to tie all these initiatives together, because they're all coming from different departments, and we will need a common thread to keep the community update that's not siloed and disjointed. Will need to be included as well.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, I think building health related awareness was one of the larger pieces to this as well. So kind of having an overarching plan for all of this, I think, will be really important. And as far as the update Beaumont's government advocacy plan on there, Councillor Monkhouse touched on that a bit. Obviously, squeaky wheel kind of gets the grease, and with this government, we really need to be proactive and push. Will that kind of part of the update, will it lay out kind of what council's role is in the advocacy piece as well, and not just, we know that as administration, you guys do a lot of work in the background as far as the advocacy piece goes, but will it have a little bit more kind of laid out steps for where council can really get into that?
Absolutely.
Perfect, thank you. That's it as far as this goes. Everyone else said what I need to say. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you very much for the great work.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Monkhouse-Swain, you have the floor now, and then I'll have a couple of comments myself, and then we'll figure out the next steps, which I got a suggestion to make to council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I talked about a motion earlier about some specific strategies, but maybe I'll invite Ms. O'Neill to provide a bit of an update on a broader approach that may be covered, and therefore make my motion invalid. Can you just give us a bit of background, please?
Ms. O'Neill.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Monkhouse-Swain, I believe you are inquiring about possible incentives for healthcare providers. So I do want to inform council that we are planning to bring a fulsome report to council by the end of Q2 regarding incentives that are industry specific, and that would include health related matters. The report would encompass things like what a municipality's role is with incentives with regards to the MGA, what our vetting process would be, all the due diligence that we would need to do. So that's slated for Q2. I don't know if that helps with the motion that you're thinking of making tonight, but healthcare would be part of our review of incentives.
Yeah, it does, and I'll look. Sorry,
and I want to add, when we say incentives, it's beyond tax incentives. It could be grants, funding, other types of support. Thank you.
Yeah, so that helps for sure, and my motion would just be a duplication of that. So I won't go there. Thanks for the update. I'll just close by saying, you touched on at the start by talking about how engaged the community was on this topic, and just because the consultation period is stopped, I'd encourage residents to continue to reach out and provide their input. Folks are very interested in this, even folks here in the audience today, about how we move forward with this, right? So yeah, I'd encourage all of our residents to continue to engage through those channels and make sure we continue to provide that input. So I appreciate the report.
Thank you, Councillor. On that too, Councillor Penrod mentioned the Mid-City Size Mayor's Caucus back in January at a conference in the south part of the province, and Sylvan Lake did a presentation. And I can equate their presentation simply like a Kean University or a US college recruiting players. That's how it's a great idea, and they had a good way of doing it. We can do the same thing in Beaumont here in some way or form. Now, piggybacking on the idea of the package that Ms. O'Neill was talking about, this topic is, and the report is very, very detailed. There's more to talk about. So I'm going to suggest we do a special council meeting on this report at a further time, and maybe incorporating that report sometime in Q2 at that same meeting. We'll figure out how to make that work. But I think we can incorporate a deeper dive into this report, as well as the report coming back in Q2 from Ms. O'Neill's team, which you're part of, Cassandra, which we appreciate. So having said that, we could probably do that sometime in Q2. So seeing no further discussion, many members of council, I'll ask for a motion to accept this report as information. And I will get back to council on the next steps and getting in more of a deeper dive on this down the road. So Councillor Penrod.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. I'd like to move that the April 9th, 2024 Health Services Action Plan report be received as information.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion, members of council. Seeing none, council, would you please vote on the motion? Councillor Natelibus, how do you vote?
In support of the motion.
Thank you. That carries unanimously, council, 7-0. Thank you, Ms. Squires. Appreciate your presentation this evening. On to our next topic this evening is 7.6, motion following notice. Councillor Penrod, contribution of local healthcare providers. Councillor Penrod, do you wish to, you mentioned your comments earlier. Do you wish to speak to your motion at this point?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I think at this point, what I'd like to do is invite my colleagues to allow me to withdraw this motion following notice to give that consensus.
Thank you, Councillor. I see no reason to object to that. Anybody? I'm sure we're fine with that. So thank you, Councillor Penrod, for doing that. We can probably resurface that motion sometime down the road at the next thing we talked about a few minutes ago. So I appreciate that. Next on our agenda is Councillor inquiries, responses, and reports. Councillor Penrod's property tax information report was given back to him. Any other councillor inquiries this evening? Seeing none, thank you, council. Next on our agenda is our CAO update. Mr. Schwartz.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll be quick because I know we still have some items to go. Certainly wanted to recognize today as being Vimy Ridge Day. It's the annual observation on April 9th of a battle that went from April 9th to the 12th. And it really put the Canadians on the map. We were kind of playing second fiddle to Britain for quite a while. And this is the first time that all 4 Canadian divisions fought together and not without cost. There were over 10,000 casualties and upwards of 4,000 deaths. They were actually, Vimy Ridge is have a little bit of passion for it, obviously. They describe it as battling over a graveyard, because the French troops had been in there before and upwards of 100,000 of them were killed trying to take over Vimy Ridge. But it was very strategic and as again seen as one of the biggest moves by the Canadian military and really put us on the map as a country. Update on Highway 14. I'll show you a map there. Back in 2019, obviously we became a city, and with that becomes a jurisdiction of the highways that run, in our case, 814. 625 is an anomaly as it's a heavy load corridor, and the province is not going to release that. So last week, ministerial order was received by the city of Beaumont that shows from the red line there that the highway, where it's red from Wetaskiwin up to Beaumont, coming from the south, is the province's jurisdiction. And where it goes yellow now is our jurisdiction. Planning did an exceptional job in the application back in 2019 and had requested a 5-year turnover period around cost for maintaining snow removal and so on. So the deal we struck with the province on Friday was to extend that for 2 more years. So we're effectively getting 7. They've also retained for the 625 reasons, the city is going to retain, the province is going to retain control over the advanced lights and the guardrails, and that'll include maintaining them and so on and so forth. So a little bit of cleaning taken care of as a result of our annexation. Did I say make a city? I meant annexation. That's what I meant, right? I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's annexation. Yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah, right. And the annexation. Okay, got it. Thank you, Kendra. Kendra did all the work. I just got a chance to do the speaking. Community service, how to cope in the modern world workshop started Monday, April 8th. It's a 4-week Zoom workshop put on by FCSS and led by Tacit Knowledge. Registration is required. The volunteering for tax program that I talked about last time will run until April 23rd. Available to low-income residents. We've helped 47 so far. As you'll probably see out there, a street sweeping program is currently in progress and will continue for the next 2 months. There's a lot of particulate out there, a lot of gravel that needs to be picked up. So people be careful when you're going around corners, especially riding bikes or motorcycles. But we will get that all cleaned up, and then the line painting will take place at the beginning of June. Transit service changes started April 2nd. We've seen a lot of social media posts on those. So we've seen extended hours and weekend hours and reduced fares. So we had a little bit of a hiccup with the ARC system, but everything seems to be running very well. And between April 18th and 30th, administration will be collecting feedback from residents on pedestrian safety improvements or enhancements, and that's a direction from council as well. Key message brief will be provided to council with additional details, as will some key messages on the health care action plan. That's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Any questions for Mr. Schwartz for his CEO update? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Penrod.
Yeah, just a curious question. When we partner with a private provider like Tacit to provide a city program, how does that relationship work?
Mr. Schwartz?
If you could say a little bit more about that, I'm not entirely certain.
Yeah, so maybe I'm making an assumption, but I'm assuming that Tacit is running what is a city provided program. That's why we're announcing it. Am I correct in that?
I think
they're delivering, I might say.
I am not completely sure on this one, and I'll clarify and send an email, but we do a combination of things of them using their program, and we deliver a lunch and learn type where they'll teach us and then we'll deliver, or we'll just contract it out. I'm not sure what the circumstance is here, but I'll clarify and send it out on the email.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that. I think it's just a good example of where we're being creative to stretch our ratepayers, our residents' tax dollars.
That's most definitely.
And I'd just like to tell that story.
Good.
Yeah.
I will, let me
Thank you.
clarify.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. No further questions. Thank you. Item 11, notice of the motion. Are there any notices of the motion this evening for members of council? Seeing none. Thank you, council. Next on our agenda is our closed session, 12.1 municipal land disposal update. I'll need a motion to move into camera, please, and I'll ask our guests who are not last man standing, as the saying goes. I will move that council move into closed session at 9:04 p.m. pursuant to the Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act, sections 24 and 25. Members of council, any questions on the motion? Seeing no questions, council, I'll ask you to vote on the motion to move into camera. Councilor Telebas, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. That carries unanimously, 7-0. We're live. Good, thank you. We are back live again after our close. We have one item that came out of our closed session we need to deal with here, and I'll ask the motion to be placed on the screen. I'll move that the February 13th, 2024 resolution 24/208 be rescinded and that the sale of lot 33, block 9, plan 152-1520, 5608 30th Avenue Civic Address in accordance with the terms set out in the April 9, 2024 report, municipal land disposal be approved, and that the report remain confidential pursuant to section 24 and 25 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Any discussion on the motion from members of council? Nathan, I can't see you on the screen. Is your hand up or not, just so I know? Any questions?
No, no.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Seeing no questions from members of council, I'll ask you to vote on the motion. Councilor Telebas, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Council, that carries unanimously, 7-0. With that, that concludes our agenda this evening, and we are adjourned at 9:47. Thank you all for